Okay, let's fire up that intro. Get to work. Oh yeah. Raising consciousness and awakening mankind. This is End of Days Radio. Hello, hello world. How are you? Hello all of my little friends, all of my lovely listeners. This is End of Days Radio. I am your host, Daniel, broadcasting from the shimmering Emerald City, right here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. And I am here for another episode. I know we just did one yesterday. I know. But this is a very special month. And a lot of you have express your discontent with the amount of shows that I did last month. I think I only did, 2? So, to make it up to you guys, all of my wonderful, lovely listeners out there, I'm doing like 6 times as many shows this month to show you that not only am I not going anywhere, but I've got it bad, baby. Oh yeah, I've got it. I'm fiending for more knowledge. I'm fiending for more of that information. And tonight we have a very special guest. His name is Thomas Hatsis. He is an author, psychedelic historian, and researcher into magic and the occult. He wrote a very interesting book called The Witches Ointment, The Secret History of Psychedelic Magic, which states that it is an exploration of the historical origins of the Witches Ointment and medieval hallucinogenic drug practices based on the earliest sources. So I'm going to stop wasting time, stop standing around here kicking rocks, and I'm going to give him a call. Let's do this. And call. It's anticipation. Tom.
Hey, what's good?
Hey, it is great to talk to you. I am very much looking forward to being able to talk to someone like yourself who is just so well researched.
Oh, well, thank you.
Now, to start things off, I did tell my listeners a little bit about who you are and the very interesting book that you wrote. But would you mind if I asked you a little bit about your past, like your childhood? Was there anything unusual about it that led you down this path?
Not anything that sticks out in particular. It's kind of, how can I put this? So it would be like asking somebody, so I'll ask you, Daniel, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
When did you realize that?
Ooh, I have a feeling it had something to do with throwing balls, footballs or baseballs.
Sure, but what I mean is that most likely, even before you have a conscious memory of using one dominant hand over the other, you were probably already using one more than the other. So I guess that is my very terrible first answer to your question.
No, that makes absolute sense, because I can say myself, I had the seeds or the semblances of an interest into weird things even when I was a child, like long before I ever became the weirdo that I am nowadays.
Yeah, exactly, right? You were always just weird, and you were
Yeah.
always just into weird shit. Could I say, like, shit or...
Oh, you can say anything you want. We are on the internet, and the internet is still the Wild West.
Oh, nice, excellent, cool. I never, you know what it is, I never know anymore. I did an interview a few weeks ago for Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, and like they had this whole battery of things that I couldn't say.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm the anti-Nori. I'm against Nori and everything he stands for. I'm just all that stuff about not cussing. No, I don't go for that at all.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really know much about him. I just, they got in touch with me, the same way you did. Like, hey, be interviewed, and apparently he's got a lot of listeners. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Oh yeah, well he has to adhere to the FCC standards and all that, so
Yeah,
a little bit
exactly.
different, yeah.
Yeah. But awesome.
Yeah, but congratulations being on Coast to Coast. That is a pretty big achievement.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was nice talking to him. He's really good at interviewing people. I guess he's a professional, so.
Yeah, and just to level with you, that's how you came under my radar. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, you know what? Now that I think the first email you sent me said that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, really interesting interview.
Yeah. It's. I apologize. It's just been a crazy couple of weeks. So.
Oh, of course. It's anytime you're. Dealing with the subject matter that you're dealing with and writing books and stuff like that, I can imagine you've got a very full schedule.
Yeah, to say the least.
So was there a first time that something related to a drug or psychedelic crossed your mind?
The first time something like that crossed my mind. Let's see. Like, I'm gonna have to ask you to unpack that a little bit if you don't mind. Like, what do you, like, the first time I heard of any kind of psychedelic or anything was when I was, in elementary school, and they had, a cop come in and talk to the class and just say drugs are bad. So,
Yeah, that happened to me too. They had something here called the DARE program, where the cop would come in and hold that board with all the drugs stuck to it, and you'd have to touch them and smell them.
Yeah, we had DARE as well. I don't remember if that's who came and taught. And it was every, few years, I think every couple of grades they had somebody come in and say something. But I imagine that's not what you're referring to when you ask when did this idea first cross my mind. Let's see. Well, there was always the interest in kind of witchy things and what have you, and then later in life, you just kind of start studying them a little bit, and maybe you try taking a psychedelic here and there, and it just kind of all falls together, over time. Like, it's not I don't know that I've had too many things that have been like, these aha moments where suddenly everything made sense. I take a couple of knocks to the head before I learn anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was saying, very similar with me. Drug guy came in, and I went online and I was looking at stuff about pot and LSD, and I saw this stuff that said that it wasn't so bad, and that's how I kind of got an inkling that maybe it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, I mean, my thing was just that, you have friends that do it, and, they come back just fine, and they're still honor roll students, and they're still, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess they were just full of shit about that, kind of like with cannabis, when you first smoke weed, and, you don't surprisingly go on a murderous rampage, and, you start to think, all right, well, what else were they full of shit about? And psychedelics, especially mushrooms, at least for me, are one of the ones that have been so kind of misrepresented. I work with a group called Peers out here. I'm in Portland. Peers is the Portland Entheogenic Exploration and Research Society, and pretty much our whole mission is that we've had a century of bad information about psychedelics, so let's put some good information out there now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of what I hope to accomplish here today, or maybe at least partially. I do a lot of shows about UFOs and hauntings and things like that, so it's good to talk about something different.
Cool, excellent, yeah.
Now, the whole thing about you is that what's particularly interesting is you're connecting the world of psychedelics to the occult world, which is major with me because I do a show about stuff like that. Was there a moment when, like the thing with the psychedelics, that you something related to occult things or witches or magic caught your eye?
Yeah. When I was in my undergraduate years, I was researching my thesis, which was kind of a biography on Timothy Leary and a kind of a critical look at some of the things that he did. And during that time, a friend of mine had a book by Richard Rudgley called The Alchemy of Culture. It's recently been re-released under the title Essential Substances, I believe. And anyway, in that book, Rudgley kind of gives a brief overview of what this thing called a witch's ointment or a flying ointment was. And I thought the idea was just really cool, and he had the picture of the mandrake that was part human, and it was just, it spoke to me on a deeper level. I don't know how else to put it other than that. It just really, like, there was something about it that just clicked, because we don't hear a lot about the psychedelic traditions in the West. I mean, when you walk into a head shop, they'll have little statues of Buddha, and they'll have posters of Shiva and like dream catchers, and all that stuff is great. I'm not knocking any of it, but they won't have a lot of the more Western psychedelic motifs. Like, we have pretty much recently adopted the Amanita muscaria mushroom as one of the symbols of Western psychedelia in recent years. And like, even my room is decorated with all these Amanita muscarias, and yeah, I totally just kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's totally interesting. The Amanitas, like you said, it seems there's a big, almost like a movement behind them now, if you could say that. But, there's a few people that are very into it. But I tried it once years ago, and they just did not work for me at all. It just tasted like I was eating rubber.
Yeah, that's it's weird because I've heard that, I've heard similar stories as like what your experience was like, and I've also heard other people say that they've eaten amanita and really had an entheogenic experience off of it. So I've also heard stories of people eating it and they just they felt a little buzzed and then got nauseous, or they got nauseous and then felt a little buzzed, and it seems just more symbolic of the Western tradition, though. Like, I don't think that amanitas are even the second or third most used entheogen in current Western popular culture, or at least growing popular culture. I don't believe that they are, but they are symbolic of the actual of psychedelia.
Do they pretty much grow everywhere?
The amanitas, no. I mean, different mushrooms grow on different places. You have the cubensis that grow, or the liberty caps that grow on, the cow shit. You have the azarescents that grow in the grass, when you're by the beach. You have the amanitas, which grow in kind of like those piney woodland areas. So, it's different kind of, environments get different kinds of mushrooms. One of the things, though, about the amanita that differentiates it from the psilocybin is that the amanita, as you seem to have experienced yourself, there's no telling how much. I think it's muscimol is the name of the active psychoactive in there. And that varies so much, whereas something like psilocybin cubensis, I mean, it's pretty standard across the board, how much psilocybin is in there.
Is there anything in particular about psilocybin mushrooms that kind of puts them at the head of the pack as far as you go?
I mean, for me, I just really like them. And the effect of it, I have all different kinds of witchy things that I do around the ingestion of the mushroom. And it's you try a lot of different things, and psilocybin mushrooms I just have a really good working relationship, let's say, with them. They just really work for me in a way that things like LSD just didn't. And LSD is fine, but I'll always just be a big fan of psilocybin mushrooms.
Do you feel that they're fairly safe?
The problem with saying that is I would hate to encourage somebody to go out and do something irresponsible with them. So I would say that if done under certain circumstances, they're relatively safe, like those circumstances being, being in a safe place, or as they say, dose, set, and setting. So dose, don't take too much. Set, have a good mindset. So, like, if your, grandma just died and you lost your job, you're probably not in a good headspace. Don't take a psychedelic, if you're in that headspace. And setting is just your environment. Be in a place where you feel safe and, with good people and friends you trust. And then it's relatively safe. The problem is when people ignore dose, set, and setting and use them irresponsibly, then you get into trouble with them. I mean, behind every hospital story and every horror story with mushrooms, there's always this very irresponsible lead up to what happens, to what makes the headlines. There's always something really dumb that this person shouldn't have been doing that was, a direct violation of either dose, set, setting, or all three or two of them, at the same time. And that's just, you're asking for disaster.
How about cannabis?
Cannabis cannabis is safe. There's not, you're not, if somebody does something harmful to themselves or someone else on cannabis, that is, that person was probably going to do something harmful to someone else or themselves anyway, because cannabis is very harmless and very wonderful, and more people should smoke it more often.
How about combining the shrooms and the cannabis?
Depends on the person, and it also depends on the time when you do it. I've mixed both. And sometimes I've had a real rough run of it, and other times it was pretty fantastic.
What about this Witches Ointment? Do we know what went in there?
Oh, yeah. A lot of soporific substances, things like opium, mandrake, henbane, things like that, things that'll kind of knock you out, and just pretty much make you, put you in a lucid dream state.
Are these things, since it's a Western tradition, are these things that I might find in my backyard or in the local woods?
Oh yeah, henbane grows wild. Mandrake, you'd have a little bit more difficult time finding it wild around. I don't know where you are in the country. Where did you say, Oregon?
I'm up here in Seattle.
Oh, and see, that's right. I don't think mandrake is conducive to growing around here. I'm in Portland, so we're not too far from each other. Henbane, yeah, that you'll find anywhere. Belladonna was another one that grows pretty wild, that could be found in the Witches Ointment, very powerful soporific as well. But things like mandrake and henbane, you could get that online. I mean, they're not illegal.
What happens when you take this stuff? Let's start with the mandrake. Does mandrake itself, is it going to do anything to you?
Yeah, okay, so I just recently made a new magic potion that had I must have overdone it on the Mandrake and Henbane because I took it and I knocked myself out for about 12 hours.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, like I was just like, yeah, out for 12 hours straight. It was ridiculous. Um, so yeah, Mandrake and Henbane are they could be pretty gnarly. The first time I inhaled them, which is I either make them into potions or inhale them. Um, the first time I inhaled Mandrake and Henbane, I almost killed myself. Instead, I went insane for like 5 or 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're really, really, really powerful. And the difference between a low dose, a psychoactive dose, an entheogenic dose, and a deadly dose are very close.
So you got to
Yeah.
really get it perfect.
Yeah, you do. I didn't get it very perfect that first time. But now that's going back, that's around 2005, 2006. So that's going back over 10 years. And so now I've been taking them, pretty regularly since then, and I built up a tolerance to it. So now I can take that amount, and it won't kill me or drive me nuts, but it'll definitely put me into an entheogenic trance.
Now, was that the goal with the witches of old? Were they just trying to go into a trance?
Yeah, they weren't really witches. They were more shamans, and they worshipped this kind of archetypical great mother fertility goddess kind of deity. This goddess that went by so many different names all over Western Europe. In Italy, she was called Epiphania in some places, Madame Oriente in other places, Ricella in other parts of Italy. In Germany, she was Holda or Hera or Perta. In France, she was Domina Albondia. So, yeah, she was widespread, this belief in this fertility goddess. And it seems that people would use these ointments to fall into an entheogenic state, or an entheogenic trance, where they would meet with this goddess who would teach them, the virtues of herbs and how to heal their communities and how to prophecy and the secrets of stones and occult knowledge. So, I mean, we're really talking about shamanism here because it's, I define shamanism as a person who puts himself in a trance into, that realm beyond the veil to bring information back that helps their community. And that's exactly what these women were doing. So that to me is shamanism.
So this is actually something that came from the old world and probably came over here along with the settlers.
It didn't, not so much because by the time the settlers were coming over here, there wasn't much of a witch persecution going on anymore. I mean, of course, we had the Salem Witch trials, and there was another, witch scare in Connecticut. So it did happen, but it wasn't. Had pretty much died down by that time. I mean, Salem was 1692, if I'm remembering correctly, and I mean that's pretty late. The what's popularly called the Burning Times. In our culture, kind of fizzled out by about 1650. So Salem was almost half a century after the great conflagrations of Europe.
Oh, okay. So Salem actually happened after the real big witch burnings, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's why you didn't. I mean, at Salem, 18 people were hanged at Salem, and that's 18 people too many. But it wasn't like the large scale witch trials, where you have 50 to 100 people being slaughtered. I mean, there was one town in Germany where every single woman was executed.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
Yeah, so, we didn't have that here, and again, except for Salem, which was relatively small in comparison. Again, still a tragedy, of course, but relatively small compared to what went on in Europe, and one that was of similar size in Connecticut, and that's pretty much it by and large, for America, unless you're talking about the native population persecutions of witchcraft.
Why did
But that's
they?
not a European thing.
Why did they kill an entire town full of women?
Because you think one of them is a witch, and if you believe that witches all work, in groups, they don't work alone, then that means there must be others. And when you torture somebody into, telling you, like if I were to like have you, Daniel, for example, and I had you, let's say, with a red hot poker. You were chained up in a dungeon, and I had a red hot poker that was sitting over a fire, burning hot, and I touched it to your face, and you screamed bloody murder in excruciating pain. And then I said to you, tell me who the other witches are, or I'm going to do the other cheek. You're just going to start name dropping just to save yourself the pain. That's one of the problems with torture, is that you can torture somebody into saying anything. And that's exactly what you get when you look at the witch trials.
Was it the Catholic Church that was behind this?
So it's yes, but it's a little more complicated than that. Most of the witch trials began with one neighbor accusing another neighbor of witchcraft because, again, these are real practices and people really did feel that they were harmed through occult means. So most of the time, in fact, in almost every case, you start off with a secular trial. It's usually one woman taking another woman to court over some perceived harm. Now, where the church gets involved is that if they came in during that trial and said, well, we'd like to speak to the accused, and they started torturing her, or him sometimes, she would start name dropping and you get those larger trials. So where the church comes into play is they were responsible for the large scale witch trials that wiped out, whole swaths of people. Whereas the secular trials, if a person were found guilty, the punishments were not nearly as bad. And it was also they had this thing called Italian in those days, where if you accused someone of witchcraft and you lost the case, you had to suffer whatever punishment the person who was accused would have suffered. So, there was also that in place to stop people from just kind of willy-nilly accusations.
Were there witch hunters like you see in modern mythology?
What do you mean by modern mythology?
Oh, I mean like video games and stuff like that, books, like people, their job is to go out and identify and hunt for witches.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a great book, actually, called Witch Hunters by J.P. Maxwell Stewart that I would recommend, and your listeners, if they're interested in this topic, to kind of, pick it up. It's a short book, and he's over at, I think, St. Andrew's College, really, really brilliant scholar, and he covers, kind of brief biographies of different witch hunters.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and it's a quick read and it's engaging. He's a great writer. He's got a lot of good stuff out there.
Was this just a lot of bigotry, hatred, and xenophobia, or is it possible that some witches actually were performing curses on people?
Yes.
Ooh.
It was all of that. It was all of that. I mean, you have the bigotry, of course. I mean, you have, some doctor, for example, is jealous because some, wise woman, can cure people just as well as he can or better for half the price. So he might accuse her of witchcraft, That certainly happened. But you also did have a lot of people. I mean, there were, just like there are today, there are witches and magical practitioners that, some are good and some use their magic for good and to heal and to help, and others do use it for evil. And, in some cases, people really were using, magic to murder each other. And, You have to take everything on a case by case basis with this stuff.
Yeah, before I got into this stuff, before I started doing this show, I never would have believed it in a million years. But my perspective has changed. I realize the reality of this stuff now.
Yeah. In fact, and this is an odd one. There was a case, I forget it specifically, but I have it coming in my forthcoming book. I'm discussing it, but there was a witch who actually asked if she could have the honor of igniting another witch because that other witch was her competitor.
Oh wow!
The one got arrested, and I mean, we don't know what the circumstances were surrounding it, but apparently this other witch brought herself, to the authorities and said, like, you've sentenced this woman to die for witchcraft, and I would absolutely love to be the one to ignite her. So,
Wow.
you also get in 1438, Peter Valan, who was a male witch, was tried and sentenced to be executed by a female judge, Eleanor of Grolier. Now that was a highly unusual circumstance, of course, but it does show just how messy and complicated the picture actually was.
Could part of the problem, like in Salem, for example, could it be that somebody was accidentally dosed with some mandrake or something like that?
There's a theory out there that ergot was used. Ergot, for those of you listening that don't know, is the base element of LSD. It's how we synthesize LSD is from ergot. And there were some theories that Salem was the result of ergot poisoning. And I looked into it for my book, and I didn't find any evidence of that.
How might these drugs differ from something like LSD or mushrooms?
Things like, you mean like mandrake or henbane or belladonna?
Yeah.
They differ in that LSD and mushrooms, if you've ever taken them, you know that it's pretty impossible to sleep. You're going to be awake for a while, whereas the solanaceous plants, henbane, belladonna, mandrake, datura, are soporific. So they knock you out and put you in this very clear and lucid dream state. So that's where you kind of encounter the spirit world in the dream realm.
Oh, wow. So you're actually putting yourself into the dream world.
Yes.
Would I possibly accidentally walk off a cliff or something like that while I'm in the dream world and I'm walking around?
Oh, you're not going to be walking anywhere, my friend. You are going to be out cold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're going to wake up in the same position you fell asleep in. Like, you're not going to move.
Okay, so this is actually like a really intense lucid dream that you go into.
Yes.
Oh, wow, okay. That doesn't sound that dangerous, but I imagine it is, considering you might get the dosage wrong.
If you get stuck, you die. So I would say stick, if you want to have an entheogenic experience, stick to the safe, illegal entheogens like mushrooms and LSD. The stuff I use, like, honestly, is very dangerous. I have spent a little over a decade working with them and starting off very small and slowly building up a tolerance to them. So, I very much want to emphasize how much I caution your listeners about, experimenting with solanaceous plants.
Oh, yeah, everybody, this is not meant to encourage you to experiment. This is for information purposes only, and you should not be doing this stuff unless you are incredibly well-researched and are willing to basically be something of a test pilot.
Yeah, exactly. And I would also recommend, if you are going to, having a friend there ready to just call an ambulance if need be.
What was the purpose of wanting to go into the dream world? Was there something in particular that a witch or a shaman might be trying to accomplish?
Yeah, in the same way when in our modern day when we have entheogenic practices, where you're going into that other world to discover something about yourself, discover something about the universe or your place in it, or discover the deeper mysteries of life and to contemplate them when you're back on this side of the veil. It seems that people used them for a variety of reasons. I mean, people use these things recreationally as well. That was also a common practice. They use them in mercenary magic. I mean, they would, drive somebody nuts, like dosing somebody. I write about, people who used to do that. They would, if somebody was bothering you, you would secretly dose them with one of these really powerful drugs, and it'd pretty much drive them crazy for a little bit, or sometimes it would kill them.
Also known as slipping a Mickey.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it's sorcery. It's you're trying to manipulate somebody's mind, through the use of a psychedelic, and that's something else that I don't think anybody should ever do, and that's not a practice I would ever do or recommend.
Yeah, it's good to have some ethics when you're dealing with such powerful substances.
Oh, absolutely. You have to. You have to have a strong ethical and moral framework for all this stuff.
Now,
Big time.
speaking of that, do you personally feel that a person should be at a particular age before they touch any of this stuff?
Um, yes. I think you should be at a reasonably mature age. Um, I think that a lot of it also, at least for me, has to do with how long you've been involved with some kind of magical or spiritual practice, because those are great ways to have kind of psychic containers for the experience. Like, um, I've gone pretty deep with into the furthest reaches of my mind, and it would have been very difficult to deal with on a day-to-day basis if I weren't already on this kind of path. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Like so I've done things like, for example, 5-MeO DMT, which is the toad medicine. And if I had to come back from that experience and go to a regular job and have a very regular life, I don't know how I would have been able to deal with that. But because, my life is about, spreading awareness, and good information about psychedelics and entheogens, and also roller skating a lot and playing roller derby. I had a whole framework with which to put the experience, and I haven't had any problems with integration. And a lot of people do. A lot of people that live very regular lives, will go and do an ayahuasca ceremony, and they come back, and they're sitting in gridlock traffic the next day, and they go nuts because they don't know how to fully integrate that beatific experience they had under the spirit of ayahuasca with their day to day life.
Do you suppose that might be why there are these myths about brain damage? Because maybe sometimes you come out of this experience just feeling a little confused and empty-headed?
I don't know. It's difficult to say because that would be commenting on something like I don't know too many people that have come back and that are, feeling confused. They're certainly not empty-headed. Most people feel like their brain has just been filled in a way it's never been filled before.
Oh, yeah, certainly. And earlier you mentioned toads. Could this be why witches are sometimes associated with toads?
I think it has to do with the bufotenine that they excrete, which is a psychoactive. Um, it's also possible, at least there's a scholar, an Italian scholar named Carlo Ginzburg, who thinks that they might have an association with mushrooms. I don't particularly subscribe to that. I mean, it's a viable theory, but I think it has more to do with there being, something in a toad that was utilized for entheogenic purposes. Now, I'll say the hole in my theory is that we don't know of any toads, like the Sonora Desert toad is the one that has the 5-MeO medicine in it. We don't know of any toad in Europe that has that. We do know that there are poisonous toads all over Europe, so what it really comes down to is finding which one actually has some kind of psychoactive property in them that could be utilized. Because there's a case I write about from the late 1300s in my book, where they say that this group of heretics got together and drank a Eucharist, and one of the ingredients in the Eucharist was the excretions from a toad, and it's clear from the description that this is some kind of powerful drug, because one guy drank too much of it and almost died, but the other participants in this, this gathering, this religious ceremony, they drank, a responsible amount of this toad Eucharist, and they had visions, so that to me reeks of some kind of psychoactive being used and some kind of psychoactive containing toad, being known about by, certain, remote heretical groups.
When you tried the bufotine, did you actually extract it from the toad's warts?
I've done both synthetic and I have, I'm not going to say anything more than this, but I have access to a toad as well. Every witch does.
Do you feel there might be a lot of species, frogs, insects, plants that might be undiscovered? I always hear that the majority of our planet and the majority of animals are still undiscovered, or at least a lot of them are. Do you think that there's probably still a lot of undiscovered animals and plants that contain psychoactive chemicals?
Absolutely, and not only that, I'm going to give you a modern example. So recently, that just happened. We just discovered a new kind of psychedelic in this form. I wish I could remember it for you to let your listeners know, but a friend of mine sent me this article about this psychoactive honey, apparently. There's also, I think there's a blowfish or something that's psychoactive that was recently discovered. So, I mean, we're discovering that kind of stuff all the time. So, I wouldn't be surprised if there are many more. A lot of times, especially in the ancient texts, when they talk about different substances, like Pliny, for example, in his Natural History, he talks about all these different psychedelics, and we have no idea what they are. I mean, because he has all these weird names for them, and all common names for them. So we don't know, what a lot of these things were, and people could have totally. It could have been things like cannabis, or it could have been something that people used to use, stopped using, and is waiting to be discovered to be used again.
Did the witches or shamans, did they combine psychoactive chemicals with ceremonial ritual?
It seems as if they did. But we don't have any accounts from them. We only have accounts from theologians talking about them. And they say that they would use, ritual chants and magical operations, along with these entheogenic ointments. So I would say yes, they did. But it's sadly we don't have an actual, an account from anybody from that time.
Yeah, because you hear about people like Aleister Crowley. He was doing all these different drugs, mescaline and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, our unfortunately our record for those medieval times is so fragmented, and so much of it is lost, and so much of it just has not come down, and so much of it that's come down has been corrupted, that it's very difficult to paint a picture. It just seems to have been very chaotic in the way that magic and psychedelics in those days seem to have been like how people use cars today. Not everyone has a car today, but most people have cars today, and everybody uses their cars hundreds of different ways, even several different kinds of ways every single day. So magic was kind of like that.
Now, it's my understanding that they also used poisons, too. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, mandrake, henbane, belladonna, datura, opium, those are all poisons.
Okay, so basically it would become a poison if you do too much or if you give it to somebody that doesn't expect it.
Yeah, it's weird because so poison in like when in the Latin texts, the word that they use is vene, which is vene, and we get the word venom from vene, and vene can mean either poison, the way we think about poison, like something that kills you, or it can mean drug, being recreational, entheogenic, used for magic or whatever. So the context matters a lot in the way these things are being used. So you'll have a clergyman talking about somebody using the same poisons in this woman's worship, in different recreational drugs that she'll sell to people, and in the drugs that she'll sell to drive someone mad or to kill others. It wasn't the actual psychoactive that mattered. It was the magical operation that surrounded the psychoactive that actually mattered.
Do you ever go to any of these psychedelic inspired festivals such as Burning Man?
I have never been to Burning Man because I've been involved in roller derby for about 11 years now, about as long as I've been doing this, actually, now that I think about it. And I'm always usually like on tour for roller derby around Burning Man times, but I've been to some smaller, little gatherings here and there. In Lakesh Festival in Ashland was a lot of fun. There was also some other one I went to in upstate New York years ago. I don't actually remember the name of it though. It was Burning Star. It was like a precursor to Burning Man. And I was living in New York at the time, so it was much easier to get there, and it was a lot less expensive.
Now, roller derby, is that when they race and they kind of knock the crap out of each other?
That's the general perception of it, but it's actually closer to a highly strategic game of chess on roller skates.
What is the goal?
To win.
Oh, okay. Do you win by do you win by points or by winning the race? I'm sorry, I don't know much about it.
Oh yeah, no. I'm teasing. You win by so in roller derby you have there are two positions. There are blockers and there are jammers. A jammer scores the points. Each jam, which is the time that the skaters are on the track, that's what that is 2 minutes long. It's called a jam. During a jam, you'll have 4 blockers from each team, so 8 altogether, and 1 jammer from each team, so 2 jammers altogether. The jammer that scores points by passing the blockers on the other team. what makes roller derby so fun and interesting is that if you're a blocker, you're playing offense and defense at the same time because you are simultaneously doing offense to the other blockers to help your jammer get past them, while at the same time doing defense against the other team's jammer that's also doing offense against you, and it is just so much fun.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. If I wanted to check out some roller derby, what should I do? Maybe go on YouTube?
Oh, dude, in Seattle, you have one of the best women's teams and men's team. You have the Rat City Roller Girls. You can look them up. And you have the Puget Sound Derby Outcasts. In fact, Puget is playing, I think, this weekend in Portland against the Portland team.
Oh, funny coincidence.
Yeah. I think it's either this weekend or coming up or next weekend. I don't remember, but yeah.
Well, I'm a big pro wrestling guy, so that might kind of be my cup of tea. See some very intense action.
Dude, it's honestly, if you have the time to drive down to Portland for this bout, it's going to be phenomenal. Like these are just the top skaters. Like these guys are ridiculously good.
Now, to bridge back into the psychedelic stuff a little bit, I did want to ask you about one very important individual. His name is Jesus Christ. Is there any possibility that he could have been on some kind of psychedelic?
It's totally possible. So I'm actually going to address this in a forthcoming book. It's weird because there's only circumstantial evidence and a whole lot of theory. Whole lot of theory. And pretty much the basic outline of the theory that I'm proposing, and again, it's rough because there's even less to go on with Jesus than there is for the medieval witches. But so during Jesus' day, it is very well established that magicians and healers and wonder workers and prophets used psychedelics and entheogens. Chris Bennett and I refer to the big four, which were cannabis, opium, mandrake, and henbane. Those are the ones that seem to be used the most in the ancient world. And so now Jesus was both a healer and he was accused of sorcery by the Jewish Sanhedrin. Now, that makes it not impossible that he could have used substances. There's also this let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? This overcompensation in the Gospels, especially like, if I'm not mistaken, in the book of Acts, that where they want to make sure everybody knows that Jesus' power comes from God alone, that he doesn't need any of the tools of the magician. He doesn't need any, kinds of ritual chants or psychoactives or anything like that, or runes or, any kind of magical operation or accoutrement. So there's also that, and it's like Jesus, that he was accused actually of sorcery is very telling. At least, by the Sanhedrin he was. The pagans accused him of treason. So, it's possible, but it's more of looking at, how other magicians and wonder workers and healers of his day in the Roman Empire, what their practices were like, and then seeing, if there are any, viable correlations with Jesus.
Yeah, that's interesting because I can say when I've looked at the Bible and looked at the things that Jesus has said. To me, that sounds almost like somebody that's experiencing some kind of LSD enlightenment or something like that.
Oh yeah, to me though, I should say that I think that comes from Paul, the kind of the more hippie LSD Jesus. I think that was an invention of Paul. I think the historical Jesus, the guy that actually walked around the earth, by the Sea of Galilee in the first century. I think that guy was an apocalyptic prophet healer. And which is also interesting, getting back to the psychedelics. We have an account by an apocalyptic prophet that includes using a psychedelic, which is Second Esdras.
Oh, okay. Did you say he was accused of it?
No. In the account, it seems pretty clear that the person who wrote the account of Second Esdras had used a psychedelic for visionary purposes, to prophecy.
Oh, okay. Being that there is the entire world of shamanism, the worlds of psychedelics and spirituality and enlightening experiences seem to come up quite often.
Yeah. There's also Benny Shanoon over in I think he's at some university in Israel. But he also makes a pretty good argument for acacia, like the acacia bush, as a psychedelic, or to be used entheogenically by ancient Hebrews. And the mandrake is mentioned in the Old Testament, so they clearly knew about the power of these plants.
Have you? I forgot who wrote it, but have you seen that book that came out a few years ago talking about how Jesus was actually a mushroom?
Yeah, that's actually another book I'm working on. So I'm working on two books right now. One of them is the one I've been kind of describing about, psychedelics and entheogens in the ancient world. And the other one, so there are several books on that topic. The guy who first came up with that theory was John Marco Allegro, but there doesn't really seem to be anything there historically. It's an intriguing idea, and his book, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, is really a lot of fun. Like, I read it a couple of times. I really liked it. I don't buy any of it. There are far too many leaps that you have to take in order for his theory to work, and he also gets a lot of the history wrong.
Why do you suppose that the government wants so badly for psychedelic or entheogenic substances to remain illegal?
Well, sorry, excuse me one moment.
No problem.
Just needed a sip of water. I'm not so sure that that's true.
Oh, really?
I kind of see the pendulum swinging the other way. I mean, cannabis is legal in your state. It's legal in my state. It's legal in like 12 or so other states.
Thank God.
What's that?
Oh, I just said thank God.
Yeah, thank God. There's also, here in Oregon, we're leading the way for legalization of psilocybin for therapeutic healing. Up in Canada, MDMA just passed another schedule, another phase of testing for, getting it closer to be legally used by psychiatrists. So I don't really go, to be honest with you, for that kind of doom and gloom of yesteryear. The government seems to kind of be backing off all of this. It seems to finally be coming around and seeing the actual benefit of these substances. They're slowly letting responsible researchers use them again. You had Rick Strassman working with DMT. You had Roland Griffiths over at Johns Hopkins with psilocybin. You had Charles Grobe, dad at UCLA, using psilocybin. You have Mark Hayden using MDMA. Ben Sessa with MDMA. And I think Mark Hayden is responsible for the next phase in testing, but don't quote me on that. But the point is, it's going the other way. So we should all be really happy, and we should be celebrating this instead of, saying that the government is trying to stop it, because it clearly isn't. The government seems to really be being kind of chill about it. So let's be psyched about that.
You did mention MDMA. That is a synthetic drug. Is that something that you feel is relatively safe to experiment with?
So MDMA, again, because it's illegal, I cannot say whether or not your listeners should or should not use it. I will say that I have used it personally, and it has been very beneficial therapeutically in my life. And it's very, if you can't afford a therapist, taking MDMA with a really good friend that you trust is you'll get years of therapy done in about 5 hours.
Do you have any thoughts on modern day Wiccans?
I mean, yeah, they're awesome. Like the more witches, the better. I don't, like I have some, witchy friends of mine that are pretty awesome, and I imagine other witchy people out there that I don't know are pretty awesome too.
Have you ever messed around with tarot cards?
I've gotten tarot readings, but I've never worked with them myself.
Did the readings that you got, were they insightful at all?
Just this last December, I think it was, right around the holidays, I got one of the best readings of anything in my entire life.
Oh, really? So there was really something there, basically.
Yeah, there was something there, and it was great. And so far, I don't know, 2017, despite the election of this moron, has actually been a pretty good year for me so far.
So I take it you're not a big Donald Trump fan.
No, I have a conscience.
Oh. Where do you see this all headed? Is he going to get us all blown up?
Nah, he's not gonna. So, I predicted that he would get elected. I know everyone's like, oh, we were so surprised, we never thought. I knew from day one he was going to win, and I also predicted that he's not going to go the full term. I don't think it's going to be that he gets kicked out. I don't think anything like we just had this whole thing today with Comey. I don't know if anything's going to come from that. I think that he's going to see just how difficult this whole thing actually is, and he's going to step down and, of course, blame someone else and just, blame Congress and say, if even I can't fix it, then it can't be fixed, so it's pointless, and, I'm going to retire to an island or whatever, That's how I see it going down, but...
Do you feel like the system, the political system that we have in the United States, do you feel that it's broken, or is there anything that you can think of that we could do to fix it? That's a big question. Sorry about that.
To answer your questions in reverse order.
Okay.
Everybody should take 5-MeO DMT, and yes.
That sounds like a good plan. Maybe we might all start growing brains if we do that.
Well, no, you know what it is? So it comes down to this. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. And this is probably the greatest lesson that psychedelic witchcraft taught me. It doesn't matter what side of the political fence you're on. Everybody can do one thing. Everyone can do one political act. And that is they can remove one asshole from the planet by being a decent and kind and civil person. Everybody can do that. So that is my political stance. I remove one asshole from the planet by not being a dick to people.
Do you feel like we're headed in the right direction? Do you feel like things will ever get better? Are we evolving at all?
If more people adopted my philosophy on the subject, then yes. If everybody, think about it, if everybody removed one asshole from planet Earth, imagine what that would do.
And since we're kind of on this sort of political topic, what do you think of the idea that the entire psychedelic movement might be some kind of big disinformation conspiracy thing?
I would say that that's ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't even know Whoever would say something like that is clearly not doing the work and would need to provide some kind of like evidence for that. Like, so my group peers spreads good information about psychedelics and how to use them responsibly and positively to grow in your life. And none of us work for any government anything. So, like it would, that strikes me as unbelievably ignorant.
Well, it
And
seems
kind of counterintuitive because you have a whole lot of people that are waking up, and to say that that's being caused by the government, like people have been using these things for thousands of years. I mean, since the beginning of time, but before the written record. I mean, we have stone carvings of mushrooms in caves in Algeria. Like, how could it? I don't think that the government, the American government or the CIA was around back then.
it seems to be mostly coming from one individual that has a very, very strong stance on this. His name's Jan Irvin, and a lot of the stuff that he has to say is really interesting, but he seems to be very set on pushing forth this idea that all of this psychedelic movement is run by some kind of Illuminati.
Well, let me say here and now that Jan Irvin, who has actually insulted me publicly, he's insulted many friends of mine publicly. Jan Irvin is the laughing stock of the psychedelic research community. He is either not invited to conferences or he is literally banned from them. He is the clown prince of he's essentially been kicked out of the psychedelic renaissance. So if people, whatever, if he's your thing and that's what you're into, that's cool. Like, I don't care, but I don't know anybody that's making a difference in the psychedelic community that takes Jan Irvin seriously. And I know just about everybody, and nobody takes him seriously.
Is this just one guy that is just grossly? Is he just making a huge error here? Could there be something nefarious here? Could he be working for the government or something like that?
It's funny because sometimes we joke about that. So I was just at the Exploring Psychedelics conference in Ashland with Jerry Brown, and we actually were, having a discussion on the whole Jesus mushroom thing. And so I think somebody said that he accused us of being CIA agents and that our whole debate was a front or something. I don't know, like everybody, I kind of don't really pay attention to what Urban says. I don't know. He doesn't, I hope he gets the help he needs because there's some misfirings going on there.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I did speak with him one time. I just sent him an email inviting him to come on the program. And I got the exact same thing. I'm a disinformation agent. I'm this. I'm that. I'm Illuminati, and it's just ridiculous.
Wait. Are you kidding? You got one of those ridiculous, like mile-long rants from Jan Irvin?
Oh, he went through all of my past shows, and he explained how the title of each show had to do with disinformation or psyops or all.
Oh my God! Okay, so just okay, Daniel, please, dude. I'm telling you, man. Like, he is an idiot. He's an absolute buffoon. I have emailed him. I said, dude, I'll debate you anytime, any place. You tell me. There are radio hosts that have asked the two of us to get on radio. He is so terrified of me, dude, because he knows I'll wreck him. Like, oh my God. And now he's bothering you too. He bothers everybody, dude. See, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and he just wouldn't let go. I mean, he actually, it's like he wanted to fight with me. I wasn't looking for that. I was just looking to put on an interesting show, not defend myself from wild accusations. I mean, I've lived here in the Seattle area my whole life. I've never worked for the government or anything like that. I'd like to think that I'm against that sort of thing.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's the thing. It's like, isn't it funny how everybody who disagrees with Jan Irvin is secretly a CIA agent? Like, isn't that telling? There's this great, I don't know, do you like the comedian Louis C.K.?
I've heard of them.
Okay, there's this one bit he does where he talks about when someone's an asshole, he's like, look, when somebody tells you, or if a bunch of people tell you that you're an asshole, you don't get to say like, no, I'm not. Like if a bunch of people are telling you that you're an asshole, or you think everyone is against you, it's probably because you're an asshole.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be. Well, one thing that I have a gripe with is he's going online and he's saying all these god awful things about Terrence McKenna, somebody that I learned quite a bit from and somebody I have a lot of respect for, and I just think talking about somebody who's passed on like that is just wrong.
Well, I agree with you 100% on all fronts about that. It's totally wrong. He's totally maligning one of the great thinkers of psychedelia, and he's doing it in a dishonest way. I mean, that whole thing with McKenna, and he's talking about how like the mushroom, tapped him to be an agent, and Jan Irvin cut it up to make it sound like the CIA. He's talking about the CIA tapped him to be an agent, and it's like, dude, are you kidding? Like, did you think we weren't going to listen to the original and see that you took McKenna completely out of context?
Yeah, you got to have more to go on than just one statement that you're using as the prime evidence for an entire body of accusations. You got to have more to go on.
Yeah, but such as Jan Irvin.
Okay.
That's him, and we all. I mean, we. I think one day we should put together an anthology, just a book, a collection of all of our Jan Irvin rants. Like, because I know so many people that get these rants from him. So, and you're just another person I know now that just has dealt with this nut job. So.
Yeah, there's another podcaster. His name's Greg Carwood. He does the Higher Side Chats. It's a popular show, and he went on his program and he was just arguing and just getting really mean, nasty, and hostile. I just couldn't believe it. It's like he really, literally just loves to fight with people.
Yeah, don't you feel bad for the guy? Like, isn't it really sad? Like, exactly. Like, and some people they love fighting with people. I don't know, maybe they're just they feel insecure about something, maybe. But it's like, what is with all the belligerence?
Yeah, it's just I'm kind of like you. I like to have more of a positive view of psychedelics. While they can be negative sometimes, they're powerful. They can be abused, but to put that whole thing about Illuminati and brainwashing the world, no, it's just that's not true.
No, it's not. And I would say that as far as with psychedelics are concerned, that is the most dangerous statement made about psychedelics, that they'll somehow ruin your mind and the world if you use them. That it's from the CIA. That's a dangerous and ignorant and just ridiculous statement. And they, use them responsibly. Don't go crazy. Like, we have a second chance. This is the psychedelic renaissance. Like, we're getting a second chance with all this. So everybody, like, if you want to, explore these spirit plants, these medicines, do it, but do it responsibly. Know what you're getting into. Make sure that you're in a good mood, be in a safe place. If you're an introverted person, don't take 2 hits of acid and go to a heavy metal show. You're gonna have a really bad time. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
have a great
exactly.
time, but I would imagine I would have a horrible time.
Well, there's one movie that I like. I mean, I admit that it's a decent movie, and a lot of my friends always liked it in high school. It's called Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I've always just thought to myself that that's got to be the worst idea ever, going to Las Vegas.
Yeah. I've actually kind of been in a similar situation with all that.
Oh, really? Would you mind sharing that?
All right, you want to hear my really stupid, like the dumbest thing I ever did?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, one of the actually, there's not just one dumbest thing I've ever done, but this one was dumb. So I was on a tour last year, and I was in LA, and I had booked four different presentations on my book, The Witches Ointment, in four different cities in 4 consecutive days. So on Saturday, I was in LA. On Sunday, I was in Phoenix. On Monday, I was in Albuquerque. And on Tuesday, I was in Austin. And that Saturday, that my presentation went really well. It was a great turnout, and a friend of mine. I'm not going to say her name because I'm about to talk about some illegal shit that went down, but she knows who she is. She came to the talk, and it went so well. So we were like, "Hey, we should celebrate." So I had some MDMA on me, and I didn't want to bring that into the Southwest. Like, I have this like fear of bringing certain amounts of things into red states, although I also tend to do it all the time, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so we took some Molly and we went out dancing to this kind of music called, it's like this 1960s French porno pop music. I'd never heard anything like this before, but apparently it's pretty popular. And I can see why, because it's a lot of fun and it's interesting. So we were out at this club listening to this, and a couple more of our Derby friends show up, and we're hanging out, and we're on Molly, and the club's all, close. And we eventually go back to her apartment, and we take more Molly and smoke hash and play Atari and pick up sticks. And we're just buddies, like the whole night. We've been really good friends for years. So it's just two really good friends on a whole lot of fun substances, enjoying each other's company. Anyway, at some point, I look at my phone and I say, "Holy shit, it's 6 a.m. And my friend says, "Yeah." And I say, "Oh, I gotta go. I gotta drive to Phoenix, Arizona." And I made a big vat of coffee, got in my car, and drove 7 hours to Phoenix, gave a presentation. It was actually one of the better ones that I, like, as far as crowd-wise. It was a really big crowd. And then went back to my other Derby friend's place, and crashed out for about 15 or 16 hours or so.
Oh, damn. Well, you did a good job being a trooper.
Yeah, but then I woke up again and then continued and drove another 6 hours or so to Albuquerque, did the talk, drove 5 hours towards Austin, crashed somewhere in Texas in the middle of the night, woke up and continued the next 6 or 7 or whatever, how many hours, I don't remember. But yeah, that was one of the dumbest goddamn things I've ever done.
We've all been there, Tom.
Stupid rock star story.
We've all been there, Tom. We've all made mistakes like that.
Yeah, but now it's at least a fun story. At the time, it's to be sitting in that car, leaving Los Angeles, knowing that I had been up all night and that I had a 6 or 7 hour drive ahead of me. Oh, that sucked.
Yeah, that sounds very, very stressful. But have you ever had one of these really bad trips, like the type where you're just so angry and you're just like pounding on the walls and you just hate everything?
No, I've never had a trip where nothing like that.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had bad trips, but I've never had any experience where I felt, any kind of violent urge or felt like there was any violence towards me in any way. When I have a bad trip, it's because I'm a fucking nut job and I'm on psychedelics. It's my own mind that's scaring the shit out of me. So it's not really anything else. So
that does beg a very interesting question. One thing that's often reported, by many people that write about these subjects, and a lot of people that just go online and post their experiences, is meeting entities, meeting spirits, meeting aliens. Do you believe in aliens at all, like actual flesh and blood aliens?
Well, yeah, of course. It's a very big universe. I mean, to think that we're the only inhabitants, um, of it, I think that's a little ridiculous, in the entire cosmos. I mean, there's got to be more.
Have you ever talked to any sort of entities while on any substances?
So when I was, I don't even know, 19, 20, 21, somewhere around there, we were at my friend Brian Marion's house. Now, Brian Marion's house was haunted, and everybody knew it was haunted. And I didn't think it was a good idea to eat mushrooms there, but it was the only place to go where we could eat mushrooms. And I'm like, guys, like, we're opening portals here. Like, I don't want to be in a haunted house. And I was talked into it, and we went there. And so my friend Sean and I, this is funny, he actually just recently had a kid. But my friend Sean and I were in the bathroom because this other dude was just kind of acting like an asshole. He was just being annoying. And so we just didn't want to have any of it. So I was sitting on the windowsill with my feet, on the toilet seat. And I was coloring in a coloring book. And Sean was just sitting in the bathtub. And all of a sudden he says to me, "The walls are bleeding." And without looking up, I'm just coloring. I say, "Dude, you're tripping out." And he says, "No, wait, what is that?" And he gets up out of the bathtub and he walks over and he runs his finger across the wall. And there was a little blood smear. And I looked and there was fucking blood coming out of the goddamn walls. I shit you not. We ran out of the house screaming. This was in January in New York. We were freezing. We didn't even have our shoes on, no jacket. We ran out of that house and refused to go back in.
Yeah, that's really scary.
It was. So, and we were tripping, so we couldn't even go anywhere. So we eventually, my friend Brian came out, and he was so funny. His family, they were like the Munsters. It was hilarious. His reaction to it was, "Oh, fuck, I'm going to have to clean that up." I swear, like, that was his reaction. And so Sean and I stand outside. He gets us our shoes, our jacket, and we're just standing out there freezing, waiting to come down. And now, I mean, we're just filled with adrenaline as well, and just waited, and finally good enough to drive, and I drove us home. And it was just to this day, all of us, I mean, if you were to ask either Brian, Sean, even the guy that was being an asshole that we were trying to get away from, they'll all tell you the same story I tell you. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really, really disturbing when you hear about multiple people seeing the same hallucination. That's another thing that I love about Terence McKenna's work. I'm sure you're aware of that story he told in his book True Hallucinations, where him and his brother were seeing the same hallucinations.
I honestly don't recall, but I could see Terrence definitely writing that. It's weird that Dennis has such a different kind of approach.
Yeah, that's very true. He's so nuts and bolts.
Yeah. It's weird because my writing, I don't know, I find it to be, and just kind of my whole take on on psychedelia to be somewhere between Terrence and Dennis.
Now,
but I feel influenced by both of them.
Pretty much the only other guy that was a psychedelic researcher that I've had the pleasure of interviewing was Dennis, and he's just a really good guy, all around good guy.
Yeah, I don't really know him. I met him very briefly at the MAPS conference this past, I think it was in April or May, one of those. Anyway, very briefly, just shook his hand, took a picture, not, really meeting or anything like that, but everybody spoke very highly of him, and I mean, if he's a McKenna, he's amazing. Cat Harrison's pretty fantastic as well.
Yeah, he let Jan interview him at some point, so he must be a good guy.
Really, was it a long time ago?
Yeah, a long time ago, and I'm sure he had no idea of the accusations that he was making about his brother until much later.
Well, it was probably before the accusations. And isn't it so just even less than shameful that Irvin like sells Terrence McKenna's like stuff on his website? Like, how low can you get?
Ugh. Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Anyway,
No, I absolutely agree. But now how about a belief in spiritual beings like demonic entities? Could there be demonic entities that modern day magicians or these witches of old might have dealt with?
yes, but it's more. So let me unpack that a little bit though. So demon is from daemon. Daemon is the ancient word for it, and a daemon was not necessarily an evil, spirit the way we think of demons today as, these horrible creature kind of things, like a demon. That's not what a daemon was. A daemon was a neutral being that could be used and called upon by a magician to do something good, like help an old lady across the street with her groceries, or do something bad, like sink the ship of, a rival, sea merchant or whatever. So, do I believe that there are energies that can be harnessed for good, bad, and everything in between ways? Absolutely. And do I think people have done that for a millennia? Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you with the big one. Do you believe in God?
Well, again, see, that's difficult because everybody has a different idea as to what God is and what that means. I will say that my experiences with entheogens, I personally think that there is something beyond the veil, and it's actually I was surprised to find out that it wasn't. Oh, you know what? I'll tell the story real quick. So, with my first 5-MeO DMT experience, was when I first met, for lack of a better word, what we'll call God, and I don't have really any doubts for myself anyway that there's something beyond the material world now, because I'm pretty sure I've seen it. And the one thing that I was the most surprised about was that I thought, that if there happened to be a God, and if I ever met what it was, that it was going to be this supreme consciousness, right? It was going to be this all-knowing thing. But what was interesting was when I got there, it wasn't. It was just love. It wasn't all-knowing. It wasn't even aware of itself. Like, if there is some kind of it, and I think there is, I don't believe it's aware of itself. I don't believe that it knows that we're here. I don't believe it knows it's here. But I've seen it. I'm pretty sure it is there. And anybody that takes a hefty dose of 5-MeO DMT can see it for themselves. I don't have any doubts at this point in my life. But I've ebbed and flowed. I've gone through times when I've been a straight up atheist, and I've been agnostic. And it's just, I try to, when new information, or as the dude would say from The Big Lebowski, when new shit comes to light, I adopt that new shit. And when I took 5-MeO DMT, new shit came to light. Like, wow, did it ever? And now I'm pretty I'm pretty convinced.
Have you, or are you planning to look into the world of voodoo and the drugs associated with that?
With voodoo?
Yeah, because it's kind of I would say it's a little bit similar to the thing with the witches and the deter and all that, because these guys do incorporate drugs into whatever strange things they get up to.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. Oh, definitely. I mean, now as far as like I haven't looked into voodoo, and if I end up looking into it, it won't be for a while, because I have two other books I'm writing, and we're also My group Peers has been doing a lot of filming, and we're trying to put footage together for a possible series. So I kind of got a lot on the docket right now. But I mean, it's definitely interesting. I mean, all different magical techniques and practices are interesting. Even if you don't ascribe to them, they're still, in their own right, for their own sake, pretty interesting.
Series, that sounds interesting. Did you want to talk about that, or can you talk about that at all?
What was that?
Oh, the series that you mentioned. Are you allowed to talk about it?
Oh, yeah. We're just right now, I'm going to be putting something up on my website in the coming weeks. My website is psychedelicwitch.com. And to all your listeners, I'm an author and a psychonaut. I am not a web designer, so my website is not very well put together. But for me, it's pretty impressive if you knew how grossly just helpless I actually am with electronics in the digital age. So for me, it's really good. But anyway, I'm going to be putting some of the videos on my website in the coming weeks, and it's just videos of different people in the psychedelic movement and the psychedelic renaissance. Like with Peers, we have one part that we're doing that's going to be a YouTube series called Profiles of the Psychedelic Renaissance, where like I was just in Ashland, we interviewed a couple of the scholars down there, like Arishta Dean, Merrill Ward, among others, and my friend Amanda as well. And we're waiting to just kind of edit them down and make them look good to actually release them to the public. But they're coming.
Awesome. And about 5-6 years ago, there was a big phenomenon on YouTube where a lot of people were taking salvia, getting it from the local gas station or wherever, and they were filming it and they're putting it on YouTube. And I feel it did a little bit of damage to the whole psychedelic entheogen world. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Oh, I was just asking you about salvia. If you had any thoughts on salvia or these videos that young people were going around making of themselves doing salvia and posting it up on YouTube.
I don't have much knowledge of that, or I haven't really watched the videos on it, so to comment on it would be just straight ignorance on my part, because I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I deal mostly with mushrooms, cannabis, henbane, mandrake, and getting good information about those things out there.
Okay, well, another question I had, there's some people out there that their belief and their philosophy is that all drugs should be legal, and then there's people that believe that none should be legal. Do you believe that they should all be legal?
It's weird. Let's have a dialogue about this, because that's a great question. On one hand, it's most of the time when we're talking about, if they should all be legal, when people are talking about problems, they're talking about things like heroin. Mm-hmm. The thing is, most people that don't do heroin don't do it, and that has nothing to do with its legal standing. I don't do heroin. I don't suggest anybody ever does heroin. If they made it legal tomorrow and the government offered it to me for free, I still wouldn't do it, nor would I recommend anybody else taking it. Even if they offered me money to do it, I still wouldn't do it. So I guess what I'm saying is legalizing all drugs is not, I don't believe people do this or that drug based on whether it's legal or illegal. Even friends that I have that don't smoke cannabis, its illegality has nothing to do with it. they don't smoke it because they don't like the effects of it. You know, they like, you know, beer or something instead, or they like their cigarettes, but they don't like cannabis. Now, for me, I can't imagine what it must be like to not like cannabis because I love cannabis, you know? So,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, we are getting very close to the end of our interview, but I did want to go ahead and just open things up and give you an opportunity, if you want, to go ahead and get on the soapbox one more time and say whatever you'd like to say. And if you'd like to plug anything, any upcoming talks, your website, anything at all, feel free to go ahead and use this opportunity right now.
sure, thank you so much. And thank you for having me on, Daniel. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course.
So to find out more about me and my research, you can do that a couple of ways. One is psychedelicwitch.com. And another way is if you go on Facebook and search for PEERS, PEERS, that's the Portland Entheogenic Exploration and Research Society. I'm one of the directors. We are the group that I've been kind of talking about throughout this interview. Just get involved. Oh, we also have peers.space is our website. You can check us out there. We host people, speakers all the time. In fact, this Thursday we have Jerry Brown, author of the Psychedelic Gospels, who I just, did a whole thing with, kind of a debate dialogue in Ashland at the Exploring Psychedelics conference. He's going to be here this Thursday. So if you're in the Portland area or around the Portland area, or want to hear Jerry speak or meet him and get his book and have it signed, we got him. We bagged him. So come on down.
Okay, awesome, Tom. Like you said, it was a lot of fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
I'm also going to be starting a tour in 2 weeks. The dates will be posted on my website, again, psychedelicwitch.com, in about a week or so. And I think I'm coming up to Seattle and Vancouver, BC in July or August. So hopefully you'll see some of you cats out there.
Yeah, awesome. Like I said, I'd love to do this again sometime. We can make fun of Jan a little bit more.
Dude, if you ever want to, when I'm in Seattle, I'm going to come up there, do a talk. If you want to just get together, I'll roll a nice, fat New York blunt, double leaf, none of the single leaf crap that the kids are doing, a real deal goddamn blunt. If you want to sit down and just smoke a blunt and talk shit about Jan Irvin, not only am I your guy, I could bring plenty of people who'd love to.
Yeah, we'll have a whole event centered around it.
No, that would be. I mean, honestly, it would be a waste of time. I'd rather talk about more meaningful stuff because he's not even worth it.
Okay, awesome. I'll let you get along with your night, Tom. Thank you again, and you have a good night, my friend.
You too, Daniel. Peace.
Peace. And there you have it. That was Thomas Hatsis, or Tom Hatsis. Very interesting interview. It's always so interesting. But this night is kind of special because we don't get a whole lot of chances to talk about psychedelics. So big thank you to Tom for giving an amazing interview here on End of Days Radio. We're going to do the usual thing and go ahead and take a little break, and we'll come back and we'll talk a little news. We'll read some letters. I got some stuff on my mind I want to go over, and you can actually call in too. So I will see you then. Let's listen to a little music. And welcome back to the fastest growing paranormal show in the world. The number one paranormal show in the world. That's right. Coast to Coast is not number one. In fact, I wouldn't even put Coast to Coast in the top 5 because there's a lot of good podcasts out there and a lot of good ones starting up every day. And like I said last time, the more people that are doing things like this, getting on the air, broadcasting through the internet, the quicker and quicker that terrestrial radio is going to die a slow, agonizing death. And hopefully, George Norrie's boring ass and his boring guests along with it. Yay. That sounded really mean. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Anyways, this is our news and listener roundtable portion of the show. I got in a little confrontation today, I guess you could call it that. You see, I really like to shop at the Goodwill, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I love the Goodwill. You can find all kinds of cool things. Clothes, CDs, DVDs, furniture, electronics. You kind of got to go on the right day when they're having a sale, or they might have missed one of their better items, and you find something that's worth more than what they're charging for. Well, I collect CDs. I'm into music. As many of you know, I'm a burgeoning musician. I kind of suck, but I absolutely love creating music, and I love listening to music as well. But I was in the CD section today, and this jerk, he's really getting up in my space, and he's like sticking his arm into my space, like reaching across the shelf, like right in front of my face, and I'm just kind of ignoring him. I'm just looking at stuff. I don't get into confrontations with people. I was just trying to look at the CDs, and this guy was really getting into my space, and I had a friend there with me, and this friend showed me a CD. I said, "Oh, that looks cool," and they showed me another one while I'm standing in front of the shelf still, and this guy's trying to like edge his way in and get me to move by like acting like he's making like these little steps, like he's coming towards me, but he's not. He's just kind of jumping at me a little bit, like lunchy, like a false start in football, except he's not really moving his feet. He's just kind of, pointing his body and moving it a little bit towards me and then moving it back, like he's trying to like nudge me over. So my friend talks to me and shows me a CD, and I say, well, that's cool. Not something I want to buy today. Then the guy goes, really? Like, I don't know what he was saying really about. I don't know if he was saying really about the CD that my friend was showing to me, or saying really because I wouldn't move out of his way. But I was starting to get a little pissed off at that point, because my friend there isn't doing anything, has nothing to do with the situation revolving around the territory of the CD shelf. So I decided to start fucking with him. I can be an asshole sometimes. What can I say? So I start doing this exact same thing that he's doing to me, but I start doing it back to him. Like, I start reaching my arm across his personal space and grabbing at CDs that are like right next to his belly. The exact same thing that he was doing to me. I normally wouldn't do anything like this. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm not mean. I'm not a jerk. But when he brought my friend into it and he started being rude to my friend, that's when I start to get that feeling like this person is crossing the line and I need to stand up for myself or stand up for this other person. So I'm doing the same thing back to him, and he goes, "Excuse me, can I look over here at these?" And I said to him, "Actually, I was here first." And for some reason, that just really set this guy off. He says, "I guess personal courtesy," or he says, "I guess common courtesy isn't a thing anymore." I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with common courtesy. I was here first, and you're pushing your way in. And he just keeps repeating the same thing. "Well, I guess common courtesy isn't a thing anymore. Here, go ahead. Let me know when you're done, bud, so that I can look." The whole time the guy's like walking away. Like, he's walking away, and he's kind of skedaddering out of there. Not that I was, trying to fight him or anything like that. I was just trying to look at some CDs. And he goes around to the other side of the aisle, and he's still yelling. He's going, "Ugh, let me know when you're done so I can look." And, I'm getting pissed off. I mean, I normally wouldn't do anything like this, but I had half a mind to just say, "Hey, buddy, look, you want to go behind this Goodwill here and duke it out like real men?" But I didn't do that. I figured it just wasn't worth it, so I didn't do anything like that. I just kind of shook my head at him, and that was that. He got out of there. I stayed and looked at stuff. He was embarrassed, so he got out of there. He was making this big old scene over nothing. The CDs that cost $2. This guy's fighting over $2 CDs. ridiculous. He totally ruined my Goodwill experience today. I was trying to have fun. I was hoping I'd find some hidden treasure in there. Like maybe the soundtrack for the movie Clueless. Who knows? Oh, so anyways, besides the Goodwill asshole, what else is going on today? Oh, I want to give a shout out to a listener named Peter. He did donate to the show. So special thanks to Peter out there. Thank you, big fella. Thank you for helping this show keep the lights on and keep the servers up. Oh, what's this? What's this? It appears that we have a call. Hello.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey there, buddy.
What's going on, my man?
Not much. Did you hear my story about going to the Goodwill today?
I did. I love Goodwill stories because I haunt those places.
Are you a Goodwill freak like me?
Oh, I'm a total freak of any kind of Salvation Army, Desert Industries. That's what they call the thrift stores in Utah, the Mormon ones.
Uh-huh.
Just full of great junk.
Now, I imagine Mormons must give away a lot of good stuff because a lot of them are filthy rich.
Oh, yeah. Just picture Mitt Romney, you know what he gets rid of weekly. And you can go down there like, you know, your average peasant and pick through that. If you're lucky, you get there first. And all these scavengers are finding Mitt Romney's furniture. No, I'm just teasing.
Well, I can say that the Goodwill used to be a lot better before all this eBay stuff started because they used to sell everything for like $3-4 at the most. Now they're pricing off of eBay, so it's super expensive.
Yeah, it's an industry.
Yeah.
If you go over to India or China where people are in abject poverty, there literally are minefields just miles long of television sets, electronics, and every scavenging person's out there trying to get anything they can to get a couple of pennies. It's horrible.
Well, apparently you can take apart some of these old electronics and get things like gold and silver and even crystals, I think, out of some of them.
Oh, totally. That's what they're using these people for in those countries.
And
That's why the Illuminati set it up so that those people always have to pick for the diamonds to barely survive their day. That's what they would have us at, Daniel, if they had their way.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, and we were kind of talking about how back in like the 70s, you could have a normal job just working, like maybe doing construction or working at a factory or a grocery store or something.
Oh, yeah.
And you would make enough money to support a 4-bedroom house, have 2 cars, a dog, 2 kids, and your wife would not even have to work.
Yep, and a boat.
Yeah, and a boat, too.
Uh-huh. Well, that's how I grew up.
But that's go ahead.
And my mom was always home, which is a wonderful influence. I didn't see my dad enough, but he taught me enough of the manly ways back then in the 70s. My dad was a hunter.
Oh, okay, so he was a real man.
He hunted everything. He's a real man to this day.
He wasn't
He wasn't top of the snowiest, fucking highest mountain peak. Sit there for just long enough to make it happen. Nobody else would do this. In their right mind.
Did he ever bring home like a deer? And he's like, son, go ahead and clean that up.
Don't make me tell you really quick because I got things I wanted to tell you. The worst experience I ever had that really kind of made me turn, against hunting was dragging the deer down from the mountain. My dad's a skilled expert, and he kills it. We get it. We're way up in the Uintas, Daniel, so far away from society that it's insane, and just 6 feet of snow. And the best way to get the deer back to camp is to drag it down the stream on a mountain. And I'm trying to keep up with my dad because he's a fucking burly man, He's carrying this fucking 300-pound deer down the mountain.
Sure, you want to show off for your dad, of course.
I'm slipping in the blood, I'm slipping in. I'm all bloody.
Oh, boy.
We cut it all up, and all the organs are out there, and it's steaming, and whew, that'll turn you off of hunting, the gutting part. But we're dragging it down the hill, and I'm covered in blood because I'm slipping and sliding. And I don't hold this against my dad. I'm just younger. I'm not as fast and powerful as him, and so I'm covered in blood. And it wasn't a great experience.
That's kind of part of the culture down there, isn't it? Hunting.
Yeah, and then the other part, Daniel, that's horrible is they, string the deer up in your garage.
Oh, wow.
And let it dry, and then cut the beef jerky out of it and all the best parts. And then I never wanted deer again when I was old enough to choose what meat I would eat. No more deer.
well, I would love to get my hands on some of that because I've had deer maybe once or twice, and it is so good. Oh my God.
Well, I'm just trying to explain. This is when I was a child.
You were getting bombarded
when I was
with it.
Young. Yeah, when I was like in my early teens, because my dad was so skilled at it that we went camping all the time and hunting all that shit, but it was too much for the processing and the getting of it at that age to see and want to do it.
Did you have one of those moments where your dad was like, "Son, it's time. I want you to kill that buck over there"?
Oh, where they smear your blood on your face? No. Thank God. It was bad enough just to watch him cutting it open and, pulling out the stuff.
So you never had to pull the trigger? You never had to pull the trigger?
Well, I shot every kind of gun when I was young because my dad was into that, but I never got anything like that. I never shot a deer. Nope. Because my parents divorced. Now we're getting deep, Daniel. I didn't mean to. I had a couple things I wanted to say outside of this. My parents got divorced, and then my second father wasn't a hunter. He was a military guy when I was in my early to late teens. And so when, I wasn't hunting after that. You get that?
Well, it sounds like you must have liked the guy. You called him your second father.
Oh, no, he was a horrible person, but I'm not going to mention names and all that. Yep, it wasn't good. It was good and it wasn't. It was living under a military father, that's out of his mind. In your early teens up to the end of high school after you were free with your first dad. That's not a good experience.
So he was kind of like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, he's a drill sergeant. Every day he would come in and go through every cabinet and go, "Who into my cookies?" That's a horrible story. See his soda pops because he would have his all lined up. And nobody else could, get into his supply.
Todd,
young kids.
one of the things that I hate, like one of my big pet peeves, is when you're in a house full of people and somebody acts greedy about this or that certain item. I mean, it's in the fridge. It should be for everybody.
No, I hear you, especially if it's got a date on it. Eat that shit. But, Daniel, I wanted to talk about something before we got too far off track. I loved your guest. Wow. Awesome. On the subject of the witch hunts and trials and the burnings and the torturings, right?
Uh-huh.
I spent a lot of years studying, read a lot of books on what they did to the witches, the magicians. That's one of the reasons witches and magicians have such a grudge against the church, because of how many people they killed, Daniel, that were just minding their own business, believing their own belief system.
Yeah, there were actually like the guest Tom was talking about. It's my understanding that there was actually like little parties, little groups of hunters that would go out and look for them. I'm not sure though if they were employed by the church or not. I can only imagine they must have been employed or recruited by the Vatican.
What it was, Tom was trying to explain that it's more complex, because Europe is a bunch of states that are feudal systems ran by their local governing oligarchs. right? That's why he said it was complex, because you could be in Europe and not everybody would be being tortured and hunted down by the Inquisition.
Yeah.
But when it reached its height, they were killing millions of people. Not every state, not every country at that time was under severe oppression, but some of them were under the most severe oppression, like Spain and a couple of those countries. That's why the Spanish Inquisition reached, is the one you still hear about, is because it reached its zenith of insanity with the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah,
where they were literally, everybody's turning everybody in, anybody's a witch, you never know whether it's coming. So after years of that crap, witches and magicians don't really side with the state. The state, Daniel, that's all it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as somebody that is a believer in things like magic and ceremonial ritual and things like that, I can only imagine that the
herbs or science or the fact that the world may be round.
It's not round. It's not round. It's not round. But anyways, I digress. I can only imagine that. Like, let's say that there are some, hidden occult magical secrets, like we were talking about with EA yesterday. Let's say that there are secrets like that. Well, anybody in power is not going to want anybody else to have these secrets. It's safe for them if they get rid of the knowledge entirely because they won't be attacked by it.
Have you seen Doctor Strange?
Oh, yeah. I absolutely love that movie. We were talking about it yesterday.
Okay, what they're doing there, and I didn't hear your interview yesterday, Daniel. I was working. All I do is work because the Illuminati has me just chained to the fucking grindstone. But occasionally I can break away to make a call to you. They'll probably whip me after this call, Daniel. Got to get back to work. But anyways, on that movie, so they got all these ancient books chained up in the library of the master over in the Himalayas, right?
Yeah.
This is just fictional trappings that they put together in a movie to describe belief systems that people hold about their masters over in the Himalaya that can control reality. That's old, nonfiction. You can find all kinds of works about describing people going to the Himalayas to meet the masters because they're sitting over there meditating.
Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey.
Yeah, and Alice Bailey, what did she do, Daniel? Remind me.
She was a protege of the German witch Madame Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky.
Oh, she was a protege. Yeah, she was later on. Because Blavatsky was
and check this out, Todd.
Century.
Check this out real quick.
Yeah.
She went over to Tibet and she started learning from these masters over there. A lot of people think that she was just completely bullshitting, but one of the stories she told was of these containers that they had, and these magicians, these sorcerers in Tibet, they would put live people in there, and they would, every so often, they would come along and they'd cut a little chunk of their flesh out, and they would eat it, and that's how they attained a form of immortality.
Alice Bailey said that?
Absolutely.
Well, that's kind of weird. I'm a student of anthropology, like a lay student, Daniel. I've read a lot of books about anthropology, and if you go back, and that's why I always try to take you back to the beginnings of our supposed society's culture, it was based, it was all warfare, and it's all feudal systems. Even in the earliest days, the tribes in the jungles are fighting against the next tribe over, right?
Yeah, it's still like
Sometimes
that.
They're peaceful. Sometimes they get along. and they trade, but they abduct members of the other tribe. I mean, the whole thing. But you've got the tribal system, and you have the elders that sit over it, the old corrupt fuckers at the top, and then you have the witch doctor, the shaman, because there is that element of our reality. It's there. I won't sit and argue it. And then there's the one that knows how to manipulate the energy, and then there's other lower positions, and then there's all the people, the tribes, the tribe, controlled by the little group. It's the same thing today. That's why I try to get back to the basic anthropology. They look at primitive systems sitting in the Amazon, or they can find them today, Daniel. They never met a civilized human being, and they're doing the same stuff that our modern day slave masters are doing.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that at all. Like you said, so many of us, purely because of this system of inflation and system of debt and this worldwide banking conspiracy, we're forced to work 2 or 3 times as much as people did back in the 60s, back in the 70s, just so we can have exactly the same amount of stuff.
What they're doing is they tried to slow down the progression of technology and time because they realized that we're in an intelligence explosion. I've told you this before, Daniel. What's happening is the amount of stuff that's known is compounding 1,000 times every day now. You might not perceive it, but computers and AI are taking it in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with you. It kind of goes back to what we've talked about before with this flat Earth thing. Maybe it really is just perception. That's something that E.A. Koetting also said yesterday. He mentioned that he kind of has a similar belief that if you believe that it's round, it's round. If you believe that it's flat, well, then it's flat.
I have a belief that you only see what you were trained or taught or have figured out what to see to a degree in certain areas, especially about history or more complex subjects, skills. You don't just know a skill because you'd like to. You have to actually learn that, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with getting your brain out of this prison box they've built for us. You know me, Daniel. I'm one of those that believes there's a metal mulching machine at the end of this bitch. They've set it up. They're ruthless. And they're trying to mulch your brain first and your body simultaneously. And if you don't get out as fast as you can, and even the ones that get out, all we're doing is maybe buying us a minute more of time.
No, I agree with you, Todd. In fact, one of the main goals is to suppress us on an individual basis, meaning they want us to hate ourselves, they want us to be down on ourselves, because if they can get us in a state like that, we're very low energy. It's hard to motivate ourselves to even get up and move, let alone instigate any sort of changes. So by keeping us, go ahead.
I love your last guest. Was it Robert Bruce?
Oh, Richard Bruce.
Richard Bruce, where he was talking about the gang stalking. They gang stalk you. They will. It happens. He's right. Go look at this shit. But if you don't fight, then if you fight, there isn't enough of them. If enough people fought them, showed them on video, showed them what they're doing, explained the deceptions, there isn't enough of them. In World War II, all the Allied armies, United States, England, they created phony tanks and weapons to make it look like they had a bigger force. So they understand disinfo to a point you can't believe, to where they can create a thing where if you're looking down above, it looks like you got a giant army, but it's just cardboard tanks.
Yeah, in fact,
or balloons.
In fact, Todd, there's people out there that actually believe that nuclear weapons never existed. It's all a hoax in order to keep the entire world in a state of fear. It's control through fear.
Well, and I don't know about the people that don't believe in nuclear weapons. I know Fukushima's supposedly melting down. I know that you can't go to Chernobyl because you'll die. Is that real or not? I don't know about, I mean, when we saw the bomb test, when we saw, the nuclear bomb test.
No, wait,
those
Todd.
aren't real?
Wait a second. We didn't see anything. All we saw was video footage.
Right, but that's just a big bomb? That's just a big bomb?
Well, they faked an entire moon landing.
No, I'm with you, Daniel. I can't believe a word these guys say.
No, I'm not saying
I can't
that.
Prove it myself.
Todd, I'm not saying that I know for sure that nuclear weapons aren't real, but whether they're real or not, they still control the world through fear. And in regards to what you said earlier about Fukushima and Chernobyl, that's actually a different type of nuclear reaction. What they do in these nuclear facilities is they actually boil water incredibly efficiently. It's completely different than a giant explosion that can level an entire city.
Right. Yeah, a nuclear power plant is not a giant nuclear explosion. Right. Daniel, before I lose track, get too far off, there was another point I wanted to make because I was listening real close to your show. I love the subject, the idea of producing trance states to go beyond and see and do things that you can't normally do unless you're in a trance state.
I believe it was Crowley that said that magic works a lot better when you're on something.
Well, Crowley was on everything and died a happy heroin addict.
Yeah, but I do think there's something there for sure. Absolutely. Maybe it just opens the chakras. Maybe it opens your mind a certain way. Who knows? I can only speculate.
Well, I know what I've experienced. If I drink a cup of coffee in the morning, it makes me feel good and wakes my ass up all of a sudden. I feel kind of, I can do this. If I smoke a cigarette, gets my heart pumping right before I got to load a truck. Because I'm a construction worker.
Oh, Todd, you got to quit those cigarettes, man. Now I'm worried about you.
I hear you, Daniel. Pray for me. Because, I'm a singer. And I don't want my voice to go. But, Daniel, I wanted to say on that subject of witchcraft, I got a fantastic witchcraft book, and it's called Mastering Witchcraft. And it's from Paul Hewson, and it was copyright, 1970. But he was writing a book that was pretty much the witches, the official witches of the world, let him write the book, right? It's an incredible book. Paul Hewson. But anyways,
Paul Hewson?
In the book.
Okay.
Pardon me?
Oh, you said Paul Hewson, right?
Hewson.
Oh, Paul Hewson.
Hewson.
And what's the book called again?
It's called Mastering Witchcraft.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Oh, it's so good. It's bound with the leather, black leather, and it has an imprint like a sigil, but it's more like a dial on the cover. It's so incredible. Black leather, red writing. Very sinister looking, and on purpose. But in the book it explains, do you want to get to know the power of witchcraft? And I'm going to make this short, Daniel. But I had to interject this because of your guests. The book explains that if you want to get really close to the power of witchcraft, do this. go into a darkened closet or the spookiest room in your house. Scariest place you can find. Take the Lord's Prayer and say it backwards. Memorize the Lord's Prayer and say it backwards in a dark space.
Yeah, Todd, I'm not going to do that. Just hearing about that gives me the creeps.
No, but if you want to feel the spookiest energy, if you want to test the limits of our society's culture and their taboo, you go do that. You know, your guest was talking about the psychedelics and psilocybins and their connections to witchcraft. My book that I have was explaining that you can produce similar effects in yourself. That'll scare yourself to death if you're a Christian believing person.
Todd, I cannot even be in the room alone with a Raggedy Ann doll because I'm afraid it's going to start moving on its own.
As the book explains, Daniel, if you do this and you survive, you'll feel like chains of society breaking off of you when you realize God doesn't strike you down with a thunderbolt. You know.
Well, Todd,
so the book uses a trick to produce a trick that you can see to make you follow further into the book to see what they're explaining.
Yeah, in fact, in the world of magic and occult, it's said that you can gain power from doing certain things that trespass your limits. Like if you were to stab a dead animal, if you were to dissect it and poke into its organs, somehow the psychological effect on your mind gives you a kind of power.
Yeah, that's animism, where they believe that the universe is filled with every tree, plant, animal has a spirit. That's some of our earliest culture's beliefs, supposedly.
All right, Todd. We could probably do this all day, but I better move along.
Oh, totally.
It's almost been a half hour.
Right,
so, yeah, awesome.
Great show, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks for calling, and I'll talk to you again very soon.
Have a good evening. Peace.
All right, buddy. Good night. And that was our buddy Todd. See, sometimes I get wrapped up in these conversations with Todd. I'll even do it off air sometimes, and we'll just get to talking and talking and talking. Next thing you know, like 7 hours have passed, and I didn't get any sleep, and you know how it goes. I get in these conversations. I lose track of time. I think Todd's casted some kind of spell on me. All right, anyways. I had a few things I wanted to talk a little bit about. I'll go ahead and read a letter. This is from Barry. He says, "Hi, will you please start doing a daily show? You are the best podcaster out there, period. We want more." Well, first of all, Barry, thank you. Your words have a great effect on me. That makes me feel so good that somebody thinks that out there. That is an incredible compliment. I'm ecstatic that you like the show. But you got to realize that this isn't a day job. It's a hobby. It's something that I have to fit into time when I'm not at work working. And sometimes, especially if I'm working overtime, I get really tired. I'm usually capable of powering through, downing a Mountain Dew, and getting right through it. But there are going to be times when there's long periods where I'm just not doing any shows because I've got to focus on Daniel stuff first before I can focus on this. And by Daniel stuff, I don't mean playing cards with the guys or anything like that. I mean doing what I have to do to survive day to day in this 3D matrix. So that stuff has got to come first. I mean, I've talked about this before. you got to do what you got to do so you can do things like have a podcast and actually enjoy the things that you enjoy in life. Sadly, because we are in a monetary prison, because we are in a materialistic matrix hell, or it's a hell to some, it's a heaven to others who have the money, but because we are in this situation, we don't have a lot of free time. That's one of the things that makes it so sad. Our lives are spent slaving away, just making barely enough to make ends meet. I really wonder if life would be better, if the world would be better, if we just went back to living in small tribes in the forest and we would hunt with spears and bows and arrows. I mean, I don't know. I hear these people talk about how these tribes in the jungles of Africa and South America, they end up just scavenging around the outside of cities, trying to collect garbage and doing things like that. Basically, the idea is that they hate their lives. But I can only imagine that's because they've already been exposed to post-industrial culture. I can't imagine that they would be miserable if they simply didn't have things like iPhones and television sets and things like that. I mean, I couldn't give it up now. I can say that much. I can't go live on some hippie farm with a bunch of vegans with hairy armpits, chicks with hairy legs and armpits, rubbing their stubs all over my face. Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, baby, show me that armpit hair. Well, yeah, I like you. You're a natural woman. None of that Illuminati shaving those pits shit. Yeah, let me rub my face in. Okay, I'm being disgusting. I'm sorry. I'll stop. But you know what I mean. What the situation we're in is that the average person has to work hard, so a few people at the very top can do nothing all day and ride around in their trillion-dollar boats with their supermodel girlfriends and supermodel wives or supermodel husbands in some cases, I'm sure. Luckily, they're able to do those things. I mean, not luckily. That's awful that they're having so much fun on our backs. I think there's something wrong with that. I think that that's the type of feeling that has caused a lot of revolutions. But at least I can say in America, anybody can start a business. And that is what I love about America. Like, just to be well-rounded, just to be completely frank, I do think there's a lot of opportunity in this country. And that is why I love my country. Not because of the bad things like racism and things like that, but because there's opportunity here. People come from all around the world to live here. So if you're one of those people that complains as much as I do, just give it some thought. Think to yourself, what could I do? How much would I need to save up to really get my own thing going? And research it, study it. Don't just jump in. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's the number one thing, especially if you're going into something that you don't have a lot of experience with. Do not put all of your eggs in one basket. Do not take any risks. Only do things that you know are going to work. You don't want to waste all your time spinning your wheels trying out a bunch of businesses that aren't going to work. So be smart, take care of yourself, always look for opportunities and never settle. And if you keep those things in mind, you just might make it. You might be able to live the American dream. I'm still working my way there. Hey, I'm 34 years old. I'm not where I want to be, but I try to make a consistent effort day to day to get to where I want to be. And the thing is, I gotta do that while doing this show, which is completely free. Sometimes people will donate $5-10 here and there, but other than that, I mean, it's just takes my time and my energy, and I have to pay for server costs and things like that. But I don't mind it because I absolutely love doing this. This is like my passion. This is what I want to do with myself. There's something in my heart that is telling me to do exactly this. And yeah, sometimes it does hurt when people, they might give credit for certain things to other people that don't exactly deserve it because I put so much time and effort into the show. But now that things are a little bit better for me, I don't really feel upset. I feel pretty good about this whole thing. I feel kind of happy. Yeah, I feel kind of happy. This feels weird. I mean, I'm happy when I'm not getting bombarded by electronic harassment or when there's not invisible reptilians walking around my kitchen. I mean, that stuff can kind of freak you out or bum you out. But I just keep powering through because I know that there is something good out there. I know that if there's bad aliens, there's good aliens. If there's demons, there's angels. If there's assholes, there's Salvation Army workers. There's a plus for every minus. What are those guys called? The guardian angels, the guys that wear those they wear those berets and they like walk around the New York subway system looking for people getting mugged and stuff like that. I mean, that's awesome. Those people are heroes. I don't think that's very smart. It looks very dangerous, but I've always thought the guardian angels were hilarious, even though they hoaxed some of their big stuff, like there was some kind of fight or mugging or something they stopped and it turned out to be a big hoax. Yeah, that's great. There's another guy, we've talked about him on the show before. His name's Phoenix Jones, and he's a real-life superhero. He wears a superhero costume. He calls himself a superhero, and he goes out and he fights with people selling crack and crazy people. And if you go on YouTube, you can look him up. I'm sure all of you know about this guy, but there was one video where he gets in a fight with this guy, and so Phoenix Jones is an MMA fighter. He's not a wimp. I mean, if anybody should be out there trying to beat up the bad guys, it's this guy. He's an MMA fighter, and not only is he an MMA fighter, but he's good at it. He's like one of the better ones. He actually wins most of his fights. So, you're out there, and this guy is coming at you. He's a superhero, and you think it's a joke, and then he starts kicking your butt, and he's pulling shit off like Batman. I mean, I think that's awesome. I'm worried about the guy. He seems like a good man, and he's really putting himself in danger. But he's always welcome on the show. He's a fellow Seattleite, and he's fighting to protect my city, and I acknowledge that. He's doing something I would never do, so he's always welcome on here. Damn straight. He probably doesn't have the time. He's probably too busy beating the shit out of some crackheads, but he's always welcome on here. Let's see here. Let's move along. Okay, so talked about that. So, I did talk about this a little bit on the last show, but I just want everybody to withhold judgment. Like I said, I will listen to anybody. If you are a Satanist, a Luciferian, black magician, a crackhead, if you are you can be anything short of a murderer. I won't talk to murderers, and I will not talk to pedophiles. Anything short of those two things, I'll probably have you on the show. Because I'm not into making value judgments. The point of this show is to get a certain type of information across. And it doesn't matter the source. Besides, people come from a lot of different angles. They have a lot of different lives. Somebody could be a Satanist, like Mike Hideous, and be a great person. Mike Hideous is a great guy. I mean, he sent me all these CDs. I'll exchange texts with him back and forth sometimes. I haven't talked to him lately, but I mean, just the nicest, most down-to-earth guy. And he's a Satanist. I've learned not to make those judgments because I've learned that you don't want to judge a book by its cover. And that applies to everybody. I mean, black, white, Jew, Hispanic, Christian, atheist. No matter what background this person has, whatever labels they have attached to them, I don't believe in making value judgments or not listening to what they have because of where they're coming from. Even annoying sort of Bible preachy stuff that gets on a lot of people's nerves because they had to deal with it growing up. Well, like I was saying the other day, with the Bible, you got to read between the lines. I know for a fact that there's knowledge in there, but I'm pretty sure it even says that you have to have the right ears. You have to have the right eyes to understand the true wisdom coming out of there. You can't just pick it up and attribute all these different things to this or that sentence or paragraph. That's why you have people using the Bible to justify killing and justify death. And not just the Bible, other religions too. It's because the people dealing with it are completely missing the point. And they're acting in a negative and controlling way, even though everything to do with the words written in these holy books and the spirituality that's there is completely contradictory. I mean, religion or spirituality should not turn you into a giant, humongous dick. It shouldn't turn you into an a-hole. But the sad fact of the matter is that it does. Some people get into religion because they want power. Some people just need some kind of protection for their mind because without something to believe in, things can be scary. The void is scary. The madness of the void, the expanse, the darkness, the shadow. If you look into it, it'll look back at you, and that's terrifying. Our own minds can be very scary, what they're capable of. They say anybody could be a serial killer, anybody could be a murderer, and I totally believe it. Given the right circumstances, maybe you have a horrible mother and you get clunked in the head at some point, get some brain damage. Next thing you know, you're picking up hookers and burying them in your pig farm or something awful like that, right? And that does happen. I mean, there's a lot of hatred against women out there because there's a lot of frustrated dudes that aren't good with women. They can't talk to them. They can't make that connection. It's not even about sex, really. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's more about just being able to make that connection, being able to make a conversation happen, get from point A to point B, to get somebody to like you, to be able to date them. A lot of guys, they don't know how to socialize. They have very low self-esteem, probably because of this matrix that we live in. And, they might be nerdy, not very good looking, unathletic, whatever it is, it's hurting their self-esteem. It's not about what you have. It's just that guys that have a lot of things like that have the money, the looks, the fast cars, these things give them confidence, and they're able to bridge that gap. But to the unsuspecting eye, you see that stuff and you think, oh, women only want money, they're materialistic, they want this, they want that. That's not the case. It's just when you have the money, it gives you confidence. I mean, I've had times in my life where I was making pretty good money and I felt like a completely different person. Like I was probably an annoying, arrogant prick because I was probably too young to be having that much monetary gain. But it does make a difference. I'm not saying that you can't be confident without money, but you got to build your confidence. You got to tell yourself daily that, hey, I'm okay. This isn't the world that I live in. Women aren't just after money. They're not horrible. I don't want to strangle them. You know what I mean? It's just that society nowadays is very sick. And we live in a culture where everybody's out for themselves, and men can be very selfish and women can be very selfish, and they'll hook up with you and you'll have sex and you won't even date. You'll just hook up and it'll be awkward, never talk to each other. Just really selfish, kind of hedonistic behavior like that seems to be the main thing nowadays. And to me, that's scary because, what's going to happen to the family? What's going to happen to romance? I mean, what's going on? Is there no romance anymore? Do men not know how to be romantic? Do they not get it at all? Do they not even try? And women, they don't even try anymore. They don't like those Fabio novels anymore. They want to read 50 Shades of Grey, where it's a bunch of crazy, nasty, violent shit. I've heard some passages from that book, and it's really strange to me that so many women think that that's the most awesome thing in the world, because I don't think it's the most awesome thing in the world. I think it's really disturbing that is something that people feel like they need in their lives. I think 50 Shades of Grey and 50 Shades of Grayer, or whatever it's called, I think that they are totally gross. There, I said it. Oh my God. I'm going to get lynched for that. I'm going to get lynched for saying negative things about 50 Shades of Grey. Isn't it funny, though, how you feel that way when you talk about like anything? You're like, oh, I don't want to offend all those people out there that like 50 Shades of Grey. Whatever. And what's really funny is guys that go see that movie are like, oh yeah, I just watched 50 Shades of Grey, dude. It's awesome. Yeah. I wanna wear a silver tie, or however that goes. Isn't that how it goes? Like the dude wears a gray tie and he chokes the girl with it or something like that, or I don't know. I just saw some scenes on YouTube and people told me about it. I didn't read it, I swear. I didn't. Okay, enough of this. Let's move on. Okay. Okay, so as you guys know, I am a YouTube addict. Anytime I'm in transit, anytime that I'm bored, well, not anytime, but a lot of times, I'll jump on YouTube and I'll look for videos about the occult or reptilians or flat earth, or you know what I mean. I like that stuff. I like to watch things that I feel are expanding my mind, or maybe they're making me dumber, but I like to think that I'm learning things. But I did come across these videos, and a lot of you are going to know what I'm talking about, but they're called Brave Wilderness. And there's this dude, his name's Coyote, and he's letting all of these animals and bugs bite him, sting him, just completely fuck him up. Like, he lets this thing called a fire ant sting him, and it's supposed to be one of the most painful stings in the entire world. Like, it just burns something awful. And he's going on YouTube, and he's I mean it's kind of clickbait. It's clickbait. He's trying to get views, but in my opinion, he's really earning them because he's letting these animals just completely ravage him. There's one where this huge crab has its pinchers around his wrist, and he's like bleeding, and then they're taking this picture, and he's like standing there screaming, just letting this crab pinch his wrist, and there's blood everywhere. Oh my god. And then there's another one where he's just picking up this nasty giant sea slug thing, and he's just picking it up and hugging it like it's a kitten and playing with it. Like, I'd never touch anything like that. And probably the grossest one, don't puke, but he actually gets cut or bit by something, and then he gets a little leech inside of the cut. It's just so gross. But I highly recommend this guy's videos. His name's Coyote, and I believe his channel or show or whatever he's on is called Brave Wilderness. And I really love stuff like that because, you know, while it might be kind of clickbait and sensationalist, I love anything with animals and anything with nature. And I think if you can educate people while you're doing strange things like letting animals attack you, I think that's definitely a positive. Hopefully he doesn't end up like Steve Irwin. You know, the guy that got a crocodile hunter. We all loved him. His videos were so funny and so cool. And then one day, you know, something weird happened, and one of the animals actually killed him. He got stung by what do they call them? Stingrays? Yeah, the things actually do have stingers on them, and they can completely harpoon you and stab you through the heart. So there's animals you don't want to mess with. You don't want to mess with anything with a stinger, anything with horns, anything like that, with teeth. Don't mess with dogs that are too vicious. You just don't do that. I mean, most animals, if you approach them, you do really good by not showing fear and by not acting threatening either. So you got to kind of walk that middle ground. Sometimes it helps if you flip your wrists around and kind of show them your wrists, like you're not threatening to them. Dogs will see that as sort of like a submissive, friendly behavior, so they'll be like, oh, okay, this guy's not a threat. So there's certain ways you can deal with animals where they won't, you know, bite your nutsack off or anything like that. I love dogs. I love cats. I love animals. I love dolphins. There's even some monkeys that I don't hate. So I've always watched animal documentaries and things like that when I was growing up. I love wolves. I even like wiener dogs. What else do we got here? Okay. This is another question from a reader. Actually, let's do a news story. Okay, so this first news story, this comes from thesun.co.uk. I believe we've borrowed some news stories from this website before. They're always in the UK. I say that every time, but people in England must really be into paranormal. So, it says Roswell UFO conspiracy CIA agent, he confesses about aliens in Area 51. He says that there's a crash and a cover-up, and they're taking the bodies into hangars, and there's actually an alien. he says that most of them died, and he said that the one gray alien that lived looked like a person from the East. I'm guessing he means Asian. So he's saying that a gray alien looked like an Asian person? Really? Hello, that's racist. Racist. You're saying Asians look like gray aliens. How is that not racist? And that's what he's saying on his deathbed confession? Like he's being racist? Like, how am I supposed to believe this? In Area 51? I mean, I don't doubt that there's stuff going on in Area 51, but the whole world knows about it. There's been movies and documentaries about it. I mean, are you really telling me that at some point they had a live alien there? Why didn't, what's his face? Sorry, I can't think of his name. The Area 51 guy. Yeah, even I forget things sometimes. It'll come to me, don't worry. He never said anything about live aliens. He talked about their technology and stuff like that, but he never talked about live aliens. So I guess I'll dismiss this one as disinfo, because obviously this guy probably has credentials, but he's saying some strange things. So I'm going to put that in the disinfo pile, because I'm teaching you guys how to discern. Teaching you about disinformation, which is a major part of this here UFO world. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that it might be one of the main parts of this UFO world. Disinformation, psyops, COINTELPRO, deception, lies, misdirection, infighting, divide and conquer. Alright, enough of that. Let's move on to that letter from a listener. So, this is from Akon. I don't know if that's the rapper Akon or what, but he says, "Hi, Daniel. You are always talking about the New World Order. I am a true member of the Illuminati and have been since birth. You should be talking to me, not these idiots who are not true blue bloods like me." Okay. First of all, if you want to come on the show, just send me an email. Let me know who you are, what you're about, why you want to come on the show, and I'll talk to you. I mean, this isn't a big deal. There's plenty of people that have come on the show and done interviews that aren't super famous or don't write books or anything like that, that aren't going to turn into massive clickbait or anything like that. It's not a big deal. I want to hear from everybody. This show is designed to educate. But as far as calling people idiots or talking about how you're a true blue blood or you were born into the Illuminati, I mean, how could I even know if that's true? And if you're going to start off so pushy and negative towards others and, you know, kind of show a bad attitude, why am I going to email you back? And why am I going to invite you? I'm not saying that I don't want to talk to you, Akon. I'm sure it'd be very interesting to talk to you. Maybe if only for entertainment's sake. But, you know, keep in mind that, what am I trying to say here? Keep in mind that ethics and politeness go a long way with me. Not because I'm some kind of polite police like Little Michelle or anything like that. You know, Michelle Full House. I'm not the polite police or anything like that. I just believe in treating people with respect, and I want this show to have a good reputation. I don't want people to be sitting in dark rooms somewhere saying, Daniel's a jerk, he ambushes people, he's mean, he's this or he's that. Because if that happens, let me tell you, news travels fast. And I don't care who you are, your reputation matters. Deny it all you want, but it matters. I don't care who you are, what you do. I don't care what people think. But I don't completely not care what people think. I mean, that would be a little sociopathic, wouldn't it? So I do believe in trying to maintain a good reputation. And that means treating the guests with respect, no matter how weird they are. If they believe that they're an alien hybrid, or they believe that they have psychic abilities, or they're from the future, or whatever, I believe that everybody, you know, as long as they're being cordial and respectful towards me, I'll be cordial and respectful towards them. We live in a culture now where it's like, you know, people are rewarded for being jerks. Like, we constantly see it on social media. People just saying whatever comes into their twisted little brains, not worrying about the consequences, just trying to get attention and just being mean and nasty because they think that their opinion is important, or they want to put somebody down, or they want their voice to be heard, which is fine. Criticism is a good thing. It's just that meanness, nastiness, bullying, and stuff like that. I mean, how many of these stories do we have to hear of these 14, 15-year-old girls that are getting bullied at school, and they're hanging themselves or slitting their wrists or taking a bunch of pills and doing things like that? That makes me cry when I hear that. When I hear stories like that, that somebody could get so depressed, so bullied, so hurt in that small period of time, in the moment, that they would actually go home and end their entire life and just throw it out the window, throw it in the trash, just because some dumbass, immature, asshole kids that are just nasty little monsters. And the problem is that their parents set a bad example. Their parents are a bunch of mouthy shit talkers who talk shit about the neighbors, who talk shit about their coworkers, that look down on people, and they encourage their kids to be mean. They don't teach them about righteousness. They don't teach them about respect. They don't teach them the basic things. It's not about discipline. It's about setting the right example. It's about being that person so your kids can observe you and become that person themselves, so they have a positive role model to look up to. That's how you do it. And that's part of the problem, is there are so few positive role models, and people look at the wrong things. They look at the gangsters. They look at the shallow, materialistic celebrities, the Katy Perrys, the Lindsay Lohans. Where's she been, by the way? Where's Lilo been? I kind of miss Lilo. She was entertaining. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, it's the shallow celebrities, the mind control clones. Let's move on from this topic. What else do we have here? Okay, so one big question is, when exactly do you become grown up? What makes you a grown up? In society, we have a lot of age limits, like you can't drink until you're 21, or you can't vote until you're 18. You can't join the military until you're 18. You can join the military when you're 18, but you can't drink until you're 21. What's that? So an 18-year-old, they can die, but they can't drink alcohol. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why are 18-year-olds even allowed in the military? Don't we want actual fighting men in the military, not kids? Is it because they can be more easily coerced, more easily controlled, more easily programmed? Is it because their bodies are younger and much more fit than us old fellas? What is it? You don't see a lot of old people going to the military. I mean, if you ask me, even though guys in their 30s might not be as physically fit as guys in their 20s, they're going to have a lot more to offer. They're going to get along with their fellow soldiers much more. They're going to have way more skills and experiences that can be applied in the battlefield. Yet it's always kids that they send to go and die. And if I had children, you better believe I would not give a shit about protecting them from a draft or anything like that. Because I don't care about some rich elitist BS wars fought in some other country, some proxy war that has nothing to do with protecting our country or our freedoms or anything like that. Just some bullshit war about reconstruction efforts and oil and political CIA manipulations, leveraging this leader against that leader, these people against those people. I absolutely would not give a shit about protecting my kids from something like that. You better believe it. I don't feel one bit bad about that. Why would I? Why would I? Because every war is really all about freedom? Yeah, not today. Not this cookie. Hey, I'm not against anybody that fights for this country. Hell no. I'm very thankful for anybody in the military. Anybody that actually does what I don't want to do. It goes out there, picks up a gun, and does dangerous things. I have all the respect in the world for that. But as far as people that I care about going and fighting in some war we don't even know what it's about. How many wars have been like that? We don't even know what the fighting is about. That's disturbing. Each and every person should know what the war is all about. It's scary. And it's scary because it's still going on today. And you always hear about, oh, we're a superpower. The United States, we're a superpower. We got all the military might. We've got this and that. How do we even know that that's true? Maybe that's just what we want our enemies to think. We didn't do very good in Vietnam. I hate to break it to you, but despite the crazy amount of technological advantage that we had in that war, we did lose. I know that we won every battle. I know that it was an impossible situation, but we did lose. We did not accomplish our goal. In fact, the whole thing turned out to be a giant waste of resources, of lives, and is one of the major blemishes in the history of the United States, because a bunch of dumbasses who didn't know what they were doing decided that they wanted to go and get involved with this weird situation that the French started. Like, it's so bad, I have trouble even explaining what the hell is going on. Maybe that's my fault for not knowing my history better, but in my opinion, everybody should know this stuff. We shouldn't shove the Vietnam War under the rug because we lost and it affects our pride. No, forget pride. I'll have pride when I go back and I'll analyze what exactly happened so we can make sure it never happens again. Forget sweeping it under the rug. Nothing like that should ever happen again. But the thing is, these bastards are so manipulative that they can make it happen. Just read Michael Aquino's book, Mind War, and you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. It's some very, very disturbing stuff. I mean, Michael Aquino, he's a friend of the show. He's come on here multiple times, but my God, that book is disturbing. When you actually hear about how these things are justified and you realize that the people at the top actually believe that it's okay to do these things, it's going to change your perspective quite a bit. And like I said, no disrespect towards Mr. Aquino. He's probably listening right now, but just read that book and you'll know what I'm talking about. Even just read parts of it. You'll catch on really quick. Wasn't I talking about age limits? What happened? God, why do I do that? I start talking about the military and the Vietnam War and end up talking about Michael Aquino? What the hell? But as far as age limits go, that's a hard thing to measure. Like this guy that I ran into at the Goodwill today, just complete douchebag. It's almost like in his mind he thinks he has a right to just push people out of the way so he can do what he wants to do. Like other people don't matter to him. It's all about me. I can just tell he's one of these downtrodden, low self-esteem, entitled millennials. He looked about that age. Just thinks it's all about me. Get out of my way. These CDs are for me. No, it's not all about you. You darn punk. They always think that. They always think it's all about them. Even I thought that at one point. It's all about me. But it's not. It's not about you. You're not the center of the whole freaking universe. Nobody is. You're the center of your own universe. I mean, as far as you're concerned, I can see why you would feel like it doesn't really matter how other people feel, but it will. Because if you go around acting like a douchebag, eventually it's going to catch up to you, or you're going to have one of those moments where you look in the mirror or think to yourself and you think, wow, I'm a giant douchebag. And it's going to really hurt because you're not going to be able to go back on that feeling. Because once you know you're a douchebag, you will always know you're a douchebag until you stop being a freaking douchebag. And age limits don't matter. I mean, they're just markers. You don't know if somebody's mature because they're 18. You don't know if somebody's mature because they're 40. There's people out there in their 40s and in their 50s, and they act like freaking animals. They get into pointless confrontations. They do stupid things. They hurt people. They kill people over dumb reasons. Just pain and suffering for no reason other than in that moment you decided to be a piece of trash. So I think age limits are, for the most part, they're BS. Why do we have to go through a system where we go to kindergarten and first grade and eventually graduate and we all just go out the assembly line just like everybody else? I don't want to live in that world. I want to live in a world that I create. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Not when somebody tells me to, not when society says that I should. I want to do what I want when I want. Just so long as I'm not interfering with anybody else's free will. Right? That would be the world that I want to live in. And maybe we can create a place like that. I don't know what we need. Do we need technology? Do we need to do what Thomas Hatsis said and just stop being assholes on an individual level? That makes a lot of sense to me. I could probably benefit from not being such an a-hole sometimes. Drinking all this orange Mountain Dew and getting all feisty. Starting fights at the Goodwill. I'm going to get 86 from the Goodwill. I'm a motherfucking Goodwill badass. Yeah, look at me and my used records and CDs. I'm a freaking badass in these dirty old used jeans and this old lady coat. Yeah, you heard that? You guys have heard that that rap song Thrift Store? What's that guy's name? That local rapper? Oh man, this sucks. I hate when I'm on air and I get stumped like that. What's his name? He wears that fur coat. Forget it. It'll come to me later. Somebody should call in and tell me. Right now. Macklemore. Oh, I'm so glad I remembered. Macklemore. That music video for that song Thrift Store, that cracks me up. Especially because he's from Seattle. I mean, I always got to give props to the local heroes like Phoenix Jones, Macklemore, Kurt Cobain, rest in peace. And some of y'all should come up here and visit me. Like, what's your problem? You should be coming up here and we should be going camping together. We should go Bigfoot hunting. We'll go and we'll buy 12-gauge shotguns and we'll buy slugs. So in case we do run into Bigfoot, we can pump some slugs into him. Do you know what a slug is? A slug is like a shotgun shell, but it does not have pellets inside. It's solid. It just has solid freaking metal inside. No, actually, I'm sorry. It's kind of like more like a musket ball because it's like a bullet where it has the hard metal ball at the end, but it's big and round. So it's like hitting somebody with a cannon. If you shoot somebody with shotgun shot, like some buckshot, you very well might blow their legs off. If you're far away, you'll hit them with some pellets. If you hit them in the leg or hit them in the butt or the back, they might still be able to get up and run away. If you hit them twice, they're almost guaranteed to be put down, maybe even once. But if you really want some stopping power, if you want to stop a bear, if you want to stop Sasquatch, if you want to stop a reptilian, then you're going to need slugs. That's why I pack slugs, because these are the types of creatures that I'm dealing with. I need to protect myself, and I've got the right stuff to do it. So if Sasquatch wants to mess with Daniel, well, he's going to get a hole blown in his perverted torso if he tries to rape me or do something like that. So if you guys want to come up here, you want to go camping with a crazy bastard like me who has a loaded shotgun and a bunch of psychedelic mushrooms, then we could have a great time. I'm just kidding. We won't do that. We'll just go camping in the woods and we'll talk about paranormal. How does that sound? We'll look longingly into each other's eyes and talk about shadow people and reptilians. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay, enough of that. This is a question from... This is a recent question from Kim. She says, Dear Daniel, do you masturbate? Okay, Kim, you are female. I can't help but find it to be very strange that you are asking me a question like this. I don't know if this is your thing or what, or if you like to ask guys questions like that or what. But the answer to that is yes and no. I'm going to admit I have done it before. I mean, who hasn't? But I try not to because I feel like it's a waste of energy. Like, I'll level with you guys. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds a little schizo, but I believe this to be true. If you do that thing too often, you are going to be dead tired. I guarantee it. Try to deny it. Try to deny it. Go ahead and pull on yourself or stick things up yourself if you're a female and do it a bunch of times in a row and see if you don't get tired. Yeah, exactly. You know I'm right. You know deep down that it's true. It's wasting your kundalini or your chi or your body's energy that you could apply towards other things. Plus, when you give up all of your sexual energy like that, you got to remember, because your sexual energy, your kundalini, it works as a magnet. So when your energy is full, you're going to magnetically attract a mate. That's how it works. I know science won't agree with me, but it's the truth. So if you're wasting all that energy, you're going to have a lot harder of a time attracting a mate, because you're not going to be giving off that magnetic energy that will pull somebody towards you. You'll just kind of repel people because you'll be in a low energy state. I know that sounds totally crazy, but Kim, you asked me the question. You asked me, and I had to answer you. And that's what I believe. So I'm going to be honest. I believe in being honest on the radio. I don't care what anybody thinks. Unless I'm on trial for something, then I definitely care what the judge thinks. But other than that, I don't care. It's the truth, and I'm here to spread the truth as I see it. I'm not going to be right about everything. Heck, I'll probably be lucky if I get 10% right. But I'm sure as heck going to put myself out there. I'm sure as heck going to be me, and I'm going to say what I want to say. With no remorse. With no guilt, because I believe in no regrets. You guys seen that movie, Meet the Millers, the no regrets guy? If you haven't seen it, go watch that movie, because that is some funny shit. Plus, Jennifer Aniston does a striptease in that movie. And if you're somebody that doesn't masturbate, when you watch that, you will. Oh yes, you will. Because that's freaking Jennifer Aniston. You know, the good-looking one from Friends. Not the other one, the good-looking one. Okay, so we are running out of time. I do apologize. I know that you guys would prefer if I went on air for like 8 hours at a time. And I do thank you. I do thank you folks that are sticking with me, that actually listen to the show and enjoy it. You guys are awesome. This show is for you. I mean, it's for me. I love doing it, but it's also for you. So keep that feedback coming. If it's positive, if it's negative, I want to know. Even if I don't agree with it. Even if I need to address it, I still want to know. I want to know what you think. Each and every one of you shining, bright, little angels, you cute little guys and gals. This show's got a lot of female fans. That's why I have trepidations about saying negative things about feminism or 50 Shades of Grey. I'm afraid of losing all those female fans. For some reason, this show has a lot of female fans. It might even have more female fans than male fans. That's how crazy it is. So I want to be kind of careful that I don't piss off all the women because I'm bashing 50 Shades. I do have one more news story. Is there time? Yeah, it looks like we got a little bit of time left. Okay. So, this show's on again, We're on again Saturday. The normal time, or the normal time that it used to be on. We are on, and there is a guest. So this ain't over, Johnny. This is just getting started. This is just the beginning. And there's like tons of more shows this month. And I'm going to add even more. I'm going to try to do a show like every friggin' day. You're not even going to have time to listen to all this. I don't even care. I'm just going to do it. Just going to freaking do it. Okay. Again, from the sun.co.uk, that awesome British publication that talks about all these weird stories. Do they just have a monkey in a room somewhere making all this crap up? Is that what this is? Okay, so it says that NASA admits its lunar reconnaissance orbiter collided with a UFO, but insists aliens were not to blame. Did you get that? Did you get that all? NASA admits its lunar reconnaissance orbiter collided with a UFO, but insists aliens were not to blame. Okay, what do I got to say to that? First of all, I want to see some proof that space is even real. I've been watching a bunch of these flat earth videos. Unfortunately, many of them are created by Christians, and I can't help but think that they might be just a little bit biased. However, I cannot deny the arguments that they are putting forth, that there is no proof that this earth is actually round. And I have a great deal of confusion about this matter. In fact, I have half a mind to go on my own exploration to Antarctica and see if there is even an Antarctica or if it's just a big ice wall. Gotta see for myself. I might just set sail. I might just make a little boat out of reeds or willow bark. I might make a boat out of willow bark and just sail around and see for myself. I'll be like a modern day Christopher Columbo. Christopher Dan Lumbo. Danifer Columbo. Danifer. Holy crap, that sounds awful. But all I gotta say is I will happily have anybody from NASA on this program. If you work for NASA and you are not an ASA, if you work for NASA and you're not an ASA, then you can come on this show. And I will talk to you and you can convince me that space is real. And if you can do that, then I will give you $20. You think you can get this amazing reward that I'm offering? Isn't that the ultimate proof? Why doesn't somebody come claim this $20? It's because space is fake. Don't you love how they do that? Like they'll offer some kind of award. Oh, I'll give anybody $5,000 if they can prove that I'm wrong. And then when you call them out on it, they're like, no, it has to be this exact way or that exact way. Sorry, the money does not actually exist and it never did. Like that. What was the guy's name? James Randi or something like that. He had that $1 million challenge or $100,000 challenge. If you can prove the paranormal, he'll give you all this money. But then when people actually would try to do it, he would have all these different stipulations and this or that. And if somebody did prove something, they'd dismiss it and want you to do it like 100 times in a row. That doesn't prove anything. I hate to break it to you people, but that doesn't prove anything. And you should not let stupid crap like that affect the way that you see your reality. Because if you're going to let people pull the wool over your eyes, then you are going to be a sheep. Because sheeps wear wool, don't they? Yeah, that's right. You don't see them walking around in cotton or polyester. They wear wool because people pull the wool over their eyes. You know that sheep are really just pigs? They've had the wool pulled over their eyes and they lost a bunch of weight and they became sheep. Don't be a sheep. Be a pig. Or don't be a pig. Be a wolf. Yeah. I mean, hoo-hoo. Yeah, I'm a wolf. The wolf is coming. That's right, Illuminati. Beware of the wolf. The Dan Wolf. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a couple more things I want to talk about, but we've got time next time. Talk a little Sandy Hook. Talk a little chemtrails. Talk a little Sandy Hook and chemtrails. Talk a little bit about the dinosaurs. Talk a little bit about this. Talk a little bit about that. Don't you love my accent? I don't know what kind of accent it is. I think I'm from Kentucky. Sorry to all you listeners out there in Kentucky. I do not mean to offend you. Alright then, it's getting late. We started at, 8 o'clock? I wish I could just go 8 hours. Just 8 hours of me talking like this. Back when I talk like this. Okay, never mind. What do I do at this time? Oh yeah. Okay, so if you like End of Days Radio, please subscribe on iTunes, on Stitcher, Google Play. Follow me on Twitter. That's at Ninja Shoes. Connect with me on Skype. That's NinjaShoes777. Facebook.com/The Real End of Days Radio. Check us out on the TuneIn Radio app. Search EODR in capital letters. That's The Real Show. That is the one you want to search for. It doesn't have a picture next to it or anything like that. That's The Real Show. That's the original. That's the real thing. That's the D to the A to the N. Let's not pretend if you are not worthy. And also, please subscribe on YouTube. If you like this show and you'd like to donate, I do appreciate your donations very much. All you've got to do is go to endofdaysradio.com and click on that donate button through PayPal. I very much appreciate your patronage, keeping these lights on, keeping these servers up. If you are a fan of mixed martial arts or pro wrestling, feel free to stop by ninjashoes.net. It's a community there dedicated to things like that. We also got a forum at endofdaysradio.com. It's kind of starting out kind of slow, but mainly because I just haven't had that much time to work on it. But I really want to get something going in there. I'll try to get in there and post more. I am going to do that, actually, because there's so much potential there. And I always start these projects, and I don't always give them the time and energy that I need to, because I get caught up, looking at pornography. Just kidding. I get caught up playing the guitar. But I love you guys. That's the main thing. I love you guys. It doesn't matter if this show is good or if it sucks, or if I'm just a wacko, if I'm crazy. It doesn't matter, because I love you guys, and I know that you love me, and that is why we are able to make this beautiful magic happen. Never forget that. Never forget that when you close your eyes at night and you feel alone, that Daniel is there for you, that he cares about you. Okay, enough of this. If I keep talking like that, I'm going to be stuck talking like that for the rest of my life. Like your parents told you, if you make that weird face, you're going to get stuck like that. That's actually true. That's what happened to a lot of us. That's why so many of us are so goddamn ugly. We were making faces when we were kids, and it got stuck that way. Don't call people ugly. That's mean. Okay, peace, everybody. This is Daniel, and I'm out. This is the Resistance. Vive la Resistance. Bye.
Winter's coming.
The king has returned from the broken ruins of Babylon. This is the end of days.